The moment he activated his invitation card, Wang Yu entered the polar night wilderness. He was just an ordinary guy, suddenly dropped into a pitch-black expanse. He could not even see his own hands. The system offered one choice: survive this freezing hell or die trying, but a strange dice mark in his palm followed him. And his very first roll turned a single lantern into 4, within. Days that insane cheat duplicated food, tools, and lumber until a giant rock became his massive shelter. The system wanted him helpless, but he chose to build a towering fortress instead. But to understand this madness, we have to look back. We need to rewind to the very beginning, right where everything started. Pitch-black darkness swallowed him. It was so intense that he could not even tell if his eyes were open. He had successfully crossed into the survival game, but the system did not drop him with a safe field, a weapon, or a clear objective, just a blinding shadow. Feeling along his left wrist, he touches the strange wristband that appeared on every citizen of Blue Star just a few days ago. Activating it brings up a glowing, translucent screen right in front of him, displaying 2 options: the personal panel and the game channel. That second icon was brand new, as the band previously only showed his stats. He taps it immediately, finding public chats, private messaging, and the crucial game tasks waiting inside. The screen reveals his location is the Polar Night Wilderness, a 1-star open game with absolutely no rules or restrictions. The description labels him as an extreme survival player, randomly dropped alongside others in a frozen wasteland that has just entered its polar night. His only objective is to survive until the sun returns. Survivors will receive massive rewards, with special gift packages distributed every 7 days. But those prizes are only given out once the game officially ends. The system tips are far from reassuring, warning of the harsh reality, where he must gather scarce resources himself. Savage predators will become increasingly aggressive as the endless dark drags on, while extreme weather makes a secure shelter absolutely non-negotiable. There is only one other exit besides surviving: dying right here. Fortunately, the first 7 days offer novice protection, providing crucial survival hints. Even the system reminder gently claims that this is just a game, so there is no need to push himself, but it immediately warns him never to believe that lie. If he wants to stay alive, that final warning reveals the true danger. The reward field is completely hidden, and the difficulty seems manageable, but the moment he pairs the polar night with a frozen wilderness, his stomach twists. On Blue Star, these survival games are notorious for being brutal. Even at the 1-star level, very few returned. Just days ago, every single person on Blue Star woke up wearing a mysterious black wristband. Along with it came a single game invitation card used to enter the simulation. The personal stat panel on his own wristband listed Wang Yu as 24, with strength at 0.9, agility at 0.8, and spirit at 1.2. This put him well below average, but the world changed incredibly fast. After the bans appeared, one player returned with godlike abilities. Flight and videos of him soaring through the clouds left everyone in total shock. Superman absolutely exploded everywhere. Game invitation cards became instant gold. Overnight, massive corporations started buying them in bulk, driving their prices sky-high. Within a few days, card prices rose into the hundreds of thousands, urging many to sell out. But even more decided to gamble everything on the promised supernatural rewards. No amount of ordinary cash could compare to holding actual supernatural power. He studied every single guide, learning the game types were completely random. Time flowed faster inside. Real bodies physically transmigrated into this world. All his meticulous preparation went straight out the window during login. Finally activating his single invitation card, he lands where he cannot see his feet. The system screen confirms his task: survive the polar night wilderness. An obvious question hits him immediately: how can anyone survive this dark wasteland? The sky itself has gone completely black, but the screen suddenly flashes. The system reports the player is ready, asking him to select tools. Rows of icons light up: fire starter, spear, hammock, small hacksaw, fishing rod, glow stick, camping pot, axe, sleeping bag, and compass, tin bucket, heavy hammer, military knife, animal trap, bottle, and net, a simple torch, military shovel, crossbow, tarp, lantern, flashlight, tent, rope. Along with first aid kits, the system orders him to choose 5 tools. He can tap each image for details, letting him breathe a bit easier. But as he begins checking the list, he feels something in his hand. It is pitch black, but his real-world secret weapon somehow crossed over with him. If that secret item actually works here, this survival game is already won. Clenching his right fist, he suppresses his rising excitement to study the list. He inspects the details carefully. First, the fishing rod includes starting bait. The heavy hammer has a chisel. The crossbow comes with 3 arrows. The traps option grants 3 units. The climbing rope is 30 feet long. Every tool lists specific sizes. Choosing only 5 is a brutal choice. But he reviews his main mission and makes his first pick instantly. He selects the flint fire starter, which comes with a metal scraper. Good for 100 uses, this is the sole reliable ignition source. Out here in the dark, fire represents light, warmth, and life itself. He knows how these magnesium starters work. They do not easily burn away. They completely ignore moisture, working normally even if dropped in deep water. Glowing hot sparks easily ignite fine tinder, even in brutal, howling winds. If he skipped this essential tool, he would deserve to freeze out here. Next up, he needs a reliable light source: torches, lanterns, or flashlights. Each option only offers around 3 total hours of light before dying. Some split into 3 one-hour pieces, others run completely continuous. Once cracked, glow sticks cannot be turned off, making control impossible. Flashlights are highly directional, but their dry batteries are strictly limited. A burning torch can easily ward off wild predators and be put out. Yet he decides to select the classic oil lantern over the other choices. Batteries and burnt wood are gone forever, but lanterns run on refueled oil. It withstands harsh winds easily. Now he must secure some food. Fishing nets, traps, and crossbows are all available, but what works? Fishing depends on skill and water. He has neither. The crossbow would be great for normal survival, but this is a polar night, and a weapon that needs a target is pretty useless. He chooses the animal. Trap instead. Even if it relies on luck, it works while he does other things. Luck beats starving. It is better than a weapon he cannot even aim. A military shovel is next. Axes, hacksaws, hammers, and knives are all great, but a military shovel can cut wood, dig soil, clear camp, and act as a weapon in a pinch. 4. His 5th tool he considers a sleeping bag, tent, or tarp because spending the night outside without shelter is basically suicide. Then he thinks of the mark on his right hand and realizes shelter is not his biggest problem. He grabs the tin bucket instead. A simple container can be used in too many ways to ignore, even if it means giving up. The first aid kit, compass, and water bottle. When he confirms, bright light bursts around his feet and 5 items appear on the cold ground. The lantern is already lit, finally letting him see the fire starter, animal traps, military shovel, and the tin bucket nearby. The game system identifies the lantern as an ordinary kerosene lantern with 180 minutes of fuel and an illumination radius of about 33 feet. 3 hours of light sounds great until he remembers that without light in this icy world, he is basically already dead. Then the panel announces he has finished selecting his survival tools and says the exclusive reward is being issued. Honestly, he already has a pretty good guess. And when the system says his exclusive backpack is ready, asking him to claim it, he almost laughs out loud. He has seen people online mention that many games give players a starting bag, and that thing is basically legendary pocket dimension equipment. After claiming it, his screen now gains a 3rd icon beside his personal status. He taps the bag icon and a large grid appears showing a storage space of 1 cubic meter. Each side is over 3 feet long. Time to test it out. He picks up that military shovel and silently commands it to enter the storage space. The shovel instantly vanishes from his hand, popping into the grid. When he commands it back out, it reappears in his grip. This level of convenience feels almost illegal. If he could take this backpack into the real world, he would make a fortune, but the guide said these exclusive items cannot be taken back, so he does not waste time. Daydreaming, he stores the shovel again, then puts away the fire starter because its striker has only 100 uses and he needs to conserve it. The animal traps and tin bucket go in next. He picks up the lantern with his left hand before finally opening his right palm under the glow. A faint dice pattern rests right there, and it is definitely not a tattoo. Months ago, he found a strange dice that drilled straight into his flesh, leaving that bizarre mark behind, terrifying him at first, but after some testing, he learned he could summon it and Use it to multiply items by simply selecting an object and rolling the dice. Whatever number lands becomes the number of extra copies he receives. From 1 to 6, he used it on newly released phones, selling the duplicates for thousands of dollars each, and was just starting to dream about a. He dreamed of luxury cars and a massive business empire when the survival game hit. Blue Star, his original plan was simple: enter the game, grab valuable loot, and survive. Then he would multiply them, but he never expected his cheat dice to follow him. Summoning it, an egg-sized die materializes right on his palm. It is pure white, like jade, with glowing golden dots on each face. The sight makes his pulse race, but whether it can multiply items inside the actual game still needs testing. He has 5 starting items, and the one he needs most right now is light. He holds the lantern in his left hand, focusing entirely on increasing its quantity. The lantern suddenly locks in. That strange locking sensation is always the first crucial requirement, because if the dice cannot lock onto an item, it cannot multiply it. He throws the die. It spins rapidly through the air, while he stares harder than he ever has at a roll in his life. The die stops on 3 dots. 3 glowing lantern-shaped clusters appear. He wills them into existence, and 3 physical lanterns clatter onto the ground. Now 4 lanterns shine around him at once. For a brief moment, the darkness actually retreats. Seriously, this is the exact kind of cheat power everyone secretly wants. He extinguishes the 3 new lanterns immediately, knowing every single minute of kerosene matters. The gold dots on the die have completely dimmed. From experience, he knows 1 dot recovers its golden color every hour, meaning he can roll again in 6 hours. However, the dice has strict limits. Items multiplied or created by it cannot be locked a second time, meaning these 4 lanterns are final. Still, 4 lanterns will grant him 12 hours of light, but 12 hours is nothing in a world of endless night. So his first major task is gathering enough firewood before his light runs completely dry. He packs the 3 spare lanterns into his bag and surveys the barren area. Underfoot, the ground is completely barren, covered in nothing but exposed dirt and gravel. Low shrubs dot the distant horizon. Choosing a random direction, he begins to march. The single lantern only lights about 33 feet around him, and beyond that is a vast black wilderness. He slips his military shovel out for quick self-defense. It is an old-style shovel, its head barely larger than his palm, attached to a wooden handle about 16 inches long. Still, the weight gives him something real to rely on. In this open terrain, he should at least have a decent chance to react if anything lunges from the dark. The system warned that aggressive predators roam this land, growing more vicious as the polar night continues. The beginning should be his safest window. He avoids dense brush, sticking to open patches, and moves quickly since valuable kerosene drains with every passing step. Short trees appear in the darkness, along with broken branches, some dry enough to burn. He gathers dry grass and chops branches into manageable lengths using his shovel. After piling the firewood, he removes the lantern glass and uses the flame to ignite the dry kindling. The bonfire catches, and as the flames roar, the tight pressure in his chest finally loosens. Fire changes everything. With the bonfire burning, he can extinguish the lantern, save his kerosene, and gather even more dry branches from within the firelight. Several large logs lie nearby. He chops them into neat logs about 1.5 feet long, bundling them up alongside piles of dry grass. Wood clearly is not scarce here, which means he can survive the crushing darkness if he keeps storing enough fuel. Dry firewood. To store it right, though, he needs shelter, a real one. But shelter is useless without water nearby. Luckily, with his fire now roaring, he finally opens up the system. Time to search. The public feeds are chaotic. General chat and trading hubs are open. And the numbers huge. 100,000 players are online nearby. A total flood of messages, people begging for a polar night survival guide, cursing their 1-star rating, panicking and pleading for help. They offer massive cash bounties back in reality, trying desperately to regroup the Gamyong Special Operations Group. Meanwhile, the trading hub offers fee-free trading. That could be massive later. He closes the public feed, opens his private menu, camera, clock, notepad. Weather forecast and friends list are all there. The clock reads 37 minutes past 9 in the morning. He has been here barely half an hour. The forecast shows it is 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Chilly, yes, but not instantly fatal. He can survive this for now. Plus, the starting gear he arrived with can handle this cold for a while. He tests a burning piece of wood as a makeshift torch, but it burns out quickly. Charred and useless, relying on random burning wood is just too inefficient. So he packs all his gathered firewood, lights his lantern again, and sets out to find a reliable water source. 30 minutes of walking brings pretty mixed results. There is plenty of dry wood, but the water, just tiny puddles and shallow ditches, completely useless. But then he spots small berries on a nearby tree. He plucks one and the system labels it edible. Normally, he would never risk eating wild fruit here. But that game panel turns deadly risk into raw data. Absolute genius. It is priceless. He builds a bonfire under the tree, douses the lantern, and uses his tin bucket to harvest. They actually taste pretty decent. And there are plenty of them. Once done, he carries a burning branch to scout ahead, spotting another berry tree, so he relights his fire and harvests that one too. But then he spots wild animal droppings. Beasts roam this area. It would be a perfect spot for animal traps, but he has no base yet in this darkness. Any trap placed now would just get lost. He moves on, lighting fires wherever he spots berries, gathering fruit and dry wood as time drains away. He walks for nearly 3 hours total in the dark. Now his tin bucket is half full, but still no real water, not a single drop. The berries prove this wilderness isn't completely hostile, and maybe the 7-day rookie protection is helping, but food without water is useless. Around noon, he stops to rest, eat, and rethink. This isn't working. Burning through his precious kerosene while wandering blindly is a terrible plan. But then the terrain suddenly drops away. He edges down the slope, excitement rising, and as he rounds a massive rock, wait for it, he spots actual flowing water. It is a small, clear creek. He feels incredibly lucky. The flow is strong enough for all his daily needs. Finding this in the pitch-black polar night means his starting area is actually things are going better than he dared to hope. He can only search this way because he has 4 lanterns and 12 hours of light, while most players would be terrified to spend their only lantern like this. Water solves his biggest survival problem, but a water source is also a danger zone. Wild beasts come to drink, rocks hide biting beasts, and without medicine, even a small mistake could end his run. He grips the lantern in one hand and his military shovel other, making sure every single step is safe before taking it. Small fish dart through the creek and vanish under rocks when his light reaches them, and small fish usually mean larger predators are nearby. For one stupid second, he regrets not choosing a fishing net or rod, but regret does not cook dinner. He walks downstream. He finds more broken branches along the bank, building a small stone fire pit and lights a bonfire. Then he grabs a burning stick to test if he can catch fish by hand, only to watch them slip through rock gaps too fast to grab. A water snail suddenly changes his luck. He picks it up, and the game identifies it as edible, which means he finally found meat. Where there is one snail, there must be more. Now watch, he starts searching the creek by firelight. The makeshift torch keeps dying every few minutes, forcing him to scrape off the charred ash, relight it, or run back to the bonfire for another piece. It is annoying, but kerosene is for emergencies now, and dry firewood is plentiful enough by the creek to keep this tedious method going. The water snails are only thumb-sized, and finding them in dim firelight is pretty slow going. He moves downstream periodically, builds a new bonfire when his torch starts dying, and keeps searching. After over an hour, he collects 40 water snails, and hunger finally stops him. He smashes the first shell with a stone. Just like that, the game drops 10 grams of snail meat and 2 copper coins. Seeing cash drop from a crushed snail is bizarre, even though the tutorial said creatures in this world could drop loot. He picks up the copper coins and they vanish into his personal panel. The interface now lists Wang Yu, age 24, strength 0.9, agility 0.8, spirit 1.2 with 2 copper coins. That matters. Items stored on the virtual panel can actually be taken out of the game, so even these tiny copper coins are real-world gains. Another prompt says, obtaining game currency unlocks the store, and the main holographic screen adds a shop icon right beside his backpack and chat channel. He taps it. But wait, a notification says his current mode restricts the shop, which is exactly the kind of humor he expected from this broken game. Either way, he crushes all 40 snails because the inventory cannot store living creatures. Each one yields 10 grams of meat and 2 copper coins. Leaving him with 400 grams of meat and 80 copper coins, he skewers 100 grams to roast and stores the remaining 300 grams in his backpack for later. The roasted snail meat actually smells way better than expected, and that first bite is simple but delicious, with warm meat and berries in his belly. He finally feels steady enough to plan ahead instead of just reacting. Food and water are sorted for now, meaning his next major priority is shelter. He cannot build too close to the creek because predators always gather near water, and the system already warned about natural disasters. A flash flood is a real threat. He needs high ground near the creek, close enough to fetch water, but far enough to avoid obvious danger. A 10-minute walk from the little creek feels like the right distance, so he starts using bonfires as reference points and searches the surrounding area. More than an hour later, he still has not found a satisfying location, and by 3 in the afternoon, he returns to the fire. Exhausted, the military shovel proves its worth again when he uses its concave head to hold creek water over the fire and boil it. The shovel can cut wood, dig earth, serve as a weapon, and in a pinch act as a crude pot, which makes choosing it feel smarter with every hour. He cannot use the tin bucket because it is holding berries, and he refuses to drink raw creek water in a survival game where vomiting and diarrhea could be fatal. While water boils, he opens the chat channel and skims the complaints. Most players are miserable, but one familiar name catches his eye. Gapong is an online influencer and wilderness survival blogger with millions of followers, and he has watched plenty of his videos. He has entered survival games before and posted guides afterwards, so he probably bought an extra invitation card to join this one. Fans recognize him in the chat channel and beg for advice, and Gapong answers with a practical warning that everyone lacks light. He explains that plain burning wood carbonizes and goes out quickly. That fuel would make proper torches possible, but nobody has fuel right now, and that the better no fuel solution is a finished torch, which can burn for at least an hour if made correctly. He says he will upload a video teaching the method and list finished torches on the trading channel in exchange for supplies, then reminds everyone not to obsess over clearing the game, but to survive long enough to reach later benefits, game coins, and items that can be taken out. Gapong does not say much, but the fans cling to every word. Some players agree that clearing this game is unrealistic, and surviving 7-day intervals for gift packages is already a win. Others brag about choosing camping pots, extra animal traps, or long climbing ropes for making traps, while plenty despair because their dry firewood will eventually run out, or their starting tools do not match their terrain. One player complains that he chose a fishing net and has walked all morning without finding a puddle. His eyes stop there because he has a creek and no fishing net. He adds the player as a friend, and his name is Jang Dihai. Once he accepts, he asks through the chat whether he will trade the fishing net since he has nowhere to fish, and our hero does. Jang Dihai refuses, insisting he knows how to fish and will succeed if he can find water. He points out that the wilderness is pitch black. He cannot travel far, and there might not be any fishing spot near him at all, but he still refuses and says it is success or death for him. Stubborn people are expensive to persuade, and he is about to close the chat when he asks whether he wants a crossbow. Jang Dihai explains that he chose the crossbow for self-defense because he trusted his fishing skill to handle food, but after a whole morning without even a ditch, he now wants a more useful tool. What he wants most is an animal trap. He immediately agrees to trade an animal trap for the crossbow, and when he doubts him, he lies smoothly and says he chose 6 animal traps. Then he tells him. Seeing his grit, he decides to trade him 3 animal traps in exchange. He hopes the trader remembers him when he catches fish. Generosity sells a lie better than bargaining ever could. Closing the chat, he pulls 3 traps from his bag. But he doesn't hit send just yet. Instead, he finds a vine near the creek. He strings the 3 traps together, tying them tight. It is already past 3 in the afternoon. 6 hours have passed since his last roll, and the golden dots are fully charged. He summons the dice, holding the traps in one hand. He focuses completely on multiplying the whole bundle, and just like that, the dice locks on, spins, and stops right on 4 dots, instantly spawning 4 extra strings of traps. That means 12 extra traps. Talk about an absolutely broken cheat item. If he had not bound them, it would only multiply 1 single trap. But grouping identical things together allows him to duplicate the entire cluster. It cannot duplicate mixed items, only identical ones stacked together. This was a limitation he had already figured out through prior testing. Now holding 15 animal traps, parting with 3 of them costs him absolutely nothing. He shoots Zhang Dihai the trade request, locks in the terms, and receives a wooden-framed crossbow about 16 inches long with 3 small arrows. Time for a quick test run on a nearby tree by the creek. He draws the string, loads an arrow, aims at a trunk 20 feet away, and pulls the trigger. The bolt thuds deep into the wood, making him grin. It is actually his very first time handling a weapon like this. But even this basic gear has a lethal range beyond 33 feet. His survival odds just skyrocketed, but get this, he still wants that fishing net. So he tells Zhang Dihai to contact him if he gives up finding a spot. Zhang Dihai promises that if he fails, he will hand over the net before he dies. What a remarkably cheerful trading partner, he scans the trade channels for other tool swaps, but no one has a net. He requests a player who chose a camping pot though. After downing some boiled water, he resumes his hunt for a solid shelter spot. A few locations look alright, but none of them feel safe enough. Choosing a base is too crucial to rush. Then he spots something strange. Thick green leaves grow like succulents, touching one the game. Identifies it as a poisonous green mushroom packed with paralyzing toxins. With 0 food value, he pulls back and loses interest immediately. A nearby hill catches his eye. Needing high ground, he climbs up carefully. The gentle slope is dotted with trees, leading into a dense forest near the top. Normally he would avoid woods, but the forest floor is flat and clear. Fallen leaves cover the path instead of thick weeds, so he pushes forward. Soon mossy rocks block his path, walking along the edge of the stone field. He notices a massive boulder towering ahead. This is exactly the anchor he wanted. He rushes over to inspect it under torchlight, getting more impressed by the second. He circles the boulder, completely satisfied. He builds a quick fire pit with stones, sparks a blazing bonfire, and pulls out his private channel measuring tool. Scanning the boulder reveals the highest point is around 17.5 feet. The walls form a solid square, stretching roughly 17 feet wide on each side. 19, 21, 23. This massive rock wall makes constructing a shelter much easier. So he decides this is his building spot. The flattest face is also the narrowest. It is about 17 feet wide with only minor uneven parts, so he wants to use it. He wants to use it as his back wall. It has 2 flaws. First, the width. First, it is narrower than the other faces. Second, there is a gap in the top corner. The adjacent wall is shorter than the rest, which leaves a pretty awkward empty space. While other walls rise 17.5 feet, that side reaches only 13.5. This leaves a gap roughly 4 feet high and 2 feet wide, ruining the flat wall. But those flaws are annoying. The flat surface is exactly what he needs. Mapping out several different shelter plans, he pulls out his military shovel. Digging out the dirt, he starts leveling right in front of that 17-foot face. Dirt, stones, and thick weeds must be cleared, taking a solid hour of labor. He clears a flat space, roughly 33 feet wide, before marking the stone. Using a sharp stone to mark, he checks lengths with a measuring tool. Then he opens his private channel notepad to record his plans, now to make progress. By 6 in the evening, the basic layout is finally ready for the next phase. With the shelter spot secured, he can finally set some animal traps. He prepares a burning torch and retraces his steps past the rocks. Down the steep slope, he walks through the dark woods to the creek. 6 minutes, that is close enough for water, yet far enough for perfect safety. Using the creek as a guide, he lights a bonfire and grabs a fresh torch. Heading downstream, he spots game trails and pries open his animal traps. He sets them down, covers them with leaves, and marks the exact locations. Spacing out 12 spare traps, he places them at intervals of roughly 160 to 330 feet. And honestly, 4 times the hunting odds is a massive edge in this game. Game is too vital to get lazy now. His traps are finally set. He still has time to spare, so he scans the creek for snails. The sputtering torch keeps dying, but he notices branches along the bank. They look washed down by floodwaters, a clear warning not to build too close. He gathers the dry wood and tree vines while searching the area. Packing the dry wood away, he spends over an hour looking. 1 hour passes. Slowly, he gathers 36 water snails in the terrible darkness. He smashes them immediately, living creatures cannot be stored inside his backpack. Skewering the meat to pack it, his torchlight suddenly catches something. A massive fish sits in a shallow pool, totally frozen in place. Trying to grab it by hand would only spook it into deep water. Only 10 feet away, he readies his heavy crossbow and aims through the water. He pulls the trigger, the bolt splashes, the fish rolls wildly. Stirred-up mud clouds the water completely, leaving him totally blind to the results. System notifications identify catfish meat weighing over 11 ounces, plus 37 copper coins. A direct hit, now that is how you catch a fish in style. Recovering his bolt from the water, he knows shooting fish is quite rare. Deep water distorts the angle, making it nearly impossible in the depths. Still, it gives our guy another highly reliable way to gather food. That is plenty of harvesting for tonight. He starts a bonfire to rest. He pulls out the collected tree vines to weave a basket, using the tin bucket for berries is just too wasteful. His weaving is crude and simple. Mimicking bamboo strips, after more than half an hour, he finishes a crude basket. Roughly the exact same size as his tin bucket, 1 foot wide and 1 foot tall. It looks pretty ugly, but it holds things. He pours the berries inside and packs it in. His special storage backpack, where the sterile, freezing vacuum space should keep them fresh. With the tin bucket now free, he fills it with creek water and stores it. Living several minutes away from the creek means hauling water is critical. And the storage backpack makes it convenient. He heads back along the creek, so he does not get lost, collecting dry firewood as he walks along. Wood means light, warm food and heat tonight. It is already past 8 in the evening, so setting up camp matters more than exploring any further. By the time he climbs the slope, cuts through the woods, and passes the giant rock area to reach his planned shelter site, his backpack is stuffed with wood. The fire pit beside the boulder has gone out, so he adds wood and relights it. With his torch sitting down, he tallies the gains from his trip, 36 snails. Yield 360 grams of meat, bringing his total to 660 grams, plus 72 copper coins. The crossbow fish also provided some catfish meat weighing just over 11 ounces, adding 37 copper coins. He roasts 2 skewers of snail meat for a well-deserved dinner. Since lunch was quite light, he eats 200 grams. Tonight, then, he boils water on his military shovel, taking 1 large gulp at a time until the clock ticks past 9. 6 hours have passed, and the magical dice is finally ready again. He places his left hand on the giant rock because he wants to multiply them this time. The boulder is massive, but the magical dice has never cared about common sense anyway, and who can blame it? He summons it, watching all 6 faces shine gold. He focuses on copying this giant rock. Feeling the mental lock take hold, he throws the dice, watching it spin while he reviews his shelter plans, mentally mapping out designs for different potential outcomes. Though a higher roll is always better, the dice lands on 3. 4 or 5 would be ideal, but 3 is plenty for his current design. 3 glowing light clusters manifest as spectral boulders, and holding the dice now feels like balancing 3 massive mountains in his palm. He stands before the marked 17-foot wall, where the ground is cleared, marked with straight lines for each new giant rock to sit. With a simple thought, he releases the first giant rock onto the first line. The massive stone materializes on the ground with a heavy thud, shaking the earth beneath him and forcing him back 2 paces. He can control where the giant rock manifests, so he places it directly on the dirt, knowing that dropping it from high above would smash a massive crater here. Even so, dust billows and the earth deforms around the impact. Once the dust settles, he inspects the alignment under torchlight. The brand new giant rock sits tight against the original. And though the stone surfaces are not perfectly flat, the gaps are mostly small, measuring under 4 inches, except for one noticeable gap near the top, where a shorter section leaves an opening about 4 feet high and 2 feet wide. He conjures the second giant rock on the opposite side, along another marked line. The ground shudders again, but this time he is calmer, and as he inspects the connection, the gap between the second giant rock and the original is only a few inches. Better yet, there is no open notch above that connection, because the position blocks the original upper left flaw. With 2 new giant rocks placed, he stands inside a U-shaped stone wall. The original giant rock is in front, the first new giant rock is on his right, and the second is on his left, with the 2 new 17-foot walls facing each other about 10 feet apart. That enclosure is his shelter body, about 17 feet long and 10 feet wide. He builds a Fire pit inside with stones, starts a fire and brings in some dry firewood. Then he walks out and releases the last giant rock, sealing the open side of the U-shaped space completely. The main body of the shelter is finished, and he is locked outside his own fort, but wait, he already has a backup plan. He actually engineered it this way, expecting the dice to drop at least 3 giant rocks. He can easily use that upper gap as his entrance and build a ladder to reach it. He heads to the nearby forest with a torch where birch and cedar are common and notices one cedar more than 2 feet thick and likely dozens of feet tall. He does not get greedy because even a professional with a chainsaw would need time on that tree. And his military shovel is not built for stupidity. He chooses a cedar about 3 inches thick instead after comparing the smaller birches and cedars around him. Before cutting, he builds another stone fire pit from local materials and starts a bonfire for light to deter beasts. Then he chops the cedar with his military shovel. Turns out a multi-purpose tool is way worse than an axe. Axe for felling trees. Thankfully, the cedar is thin, and after a few minutes, it begins to lean and finally falls. He cuts off the branches, measures the trunk with the measuring tool, and finds it is more than 20 feet long. Then he chooses another similar cedar, cuts it down the same way, strips its branches, and measures it too. He cuts both trunks down to about 15 feet, then sorts the branches and chooses pieces about an inch thick, cutting them into 16-inch sticks. Transporting everything back to the shelter takes 4 trips, 2 for the long trunks, 1 for 10 shorter sticks, and 1 for the remaining branches. Bundled together, under the giant rock, he lays the 2 long trunks side by side and uses his military shovel to carve grooves into them. Every 16 inches, he makes a groove about an inch wide, 10 grooves on each trunk. Then he sets the trunks parallel, inserts the 10 short sticks as rungs, and binds each joint tightly with vines for safety. The finished wooden ladder is about 15 feet long and heavy, but he can carry it. He brings it to the back of the first giant rock, where the wall is only about 13.5 feet high, and leans the ladder against the gap. Holding a torch, he climbs up and sees the top of the giant rock for the first time. Thick moss and bird droppings cover it, but aside from the gap, the top is relatively flat and wide, with an area of roughly 320 square feet. The other giant rocks should have similar tops, and he decides to clean them later rather than risk wandering around on moss in the dark. At the gap, the mismatched walls form a groove that works almost like a guardrail. The giant rocks on both sides rise about 17.5 feet, creating a groove about 4 feet deep, little over 2 feet wide, and around 3.5 feet long where the rocks meet. He steps into it, looks down from the front edge, and sees the inside of his shelter below. He wedges the torch into the rock face, climbs back down to the outside ground, and grabs his cedar bundle. He carries the heavy bundle of cedar branches back up, tossing them straight into his new rock shelter. Next, he hauls the heavy ladder. Slowly, he slides it right into the stone groove. He lowers it down inside. Safe inside the rock walls, he finally climbs down. He steps inside his new hideout. The interior is roughly 17 feet long by 10 feet wide. That is nearly 170 square feet, an absolute mansion in the wild. His bonfire is fading. It is close to dying out, so he quickly feeds it some dry firewood before untying the bundle. He spreads out the fresh cedar branches and collapses onto them. For once in this pitch-black world, he relaxes. 4 massive stone slabs, each several feet thick, surround his tiny camp on all sides. A heavy physical barrier. It finally brings back the peace of mind the dark had stolen. This was the entire point of building the hideout this way. Out here, safety is everything. In a world where he cannot see past his own firelight, safety matters far more than comfort. Using a ladder to enter through a tight gap is a hassle, but it is worth it. That design keeps the predators locked outside. A gap that looked like a flaw is now his doorway. Turning weaknesses into advantages is exactly how he plans to survive this brutal game. Sure, squeezing inside is a chore, but he can optimize that layout later on. For tonight, a rough cedar bed, a warm fire, and solid stone walls are more than enough. Exhaustion pulls him under. Still, he forces his eyes open to check the chat channel. He needs intel. A player named Gapong just posted, and the system shows a new listing. He has put 10 homemade torches up for trade. Gapong tells the chat they are top tier. Each one can burn for a full hour, and he wants food or dry wood in return. He even attached a quick video guide showing exactly how to craft them yourself. Other players go absolutely wild over this, treating the torches like the ultimate lifesavers. And they are not wrong, but by the time our guy actually checks the trading platform, every single torch is already sold out. He missed his chance by a matter of seconds. That is a brutal lesson. He only checked the chat 3 times today. He missed a ton of crucial updates while busy chopping wood and building walls. In a savage survival game with 100,000 players talking at once, information is a vital resource. Missing a deal is like losing a tool. He cannot stare at a screen all day, but he needs a better routine. Relying on his memory only when he is totally exhausted is going to cost him. The wilderness is brutal, but staying ignorant, that is far more expensive. He opens up Gapong's video anyway. The torch crafting method is pretty straightforward. First, a thick log is stood upright. A hole is drilled down its center. Then another hole is bored sideways through the middle to let the flame burn inside. This side opening lets air flow in, forcing the fire to eat inward. Instead of just charring the surface, the log burns completely from the inside out. It is a genius way to maximize his limited wood and keep a light burning. In this endless polar night, a reliable light source is worth its weight in gold. Knowing the method is not the issue. The real hurdle is execution. Gapong used a hammer and chisel to hollow his logs, but our guy lacks tools. Put that plan on hold. For now, he just grabs his shovel. He starts chopping away at the cedar, but those first few swings are rough. They remind him that a tool built for everything is rarely perfect for any one job. Sure, his military shovel can dig, pry, and fight, but it is no real axe. His chopping skills are pretty weak, so he smartly picks a 3-inch cedar trunk. Instead of getting greedy with the massive trees nearby, he starts hacking away. After a few minutes of hard work, the cedar finally groans and crashes down. He finally has a usable log, though stripping the stubborn limbs takes serious effort. Cleaning up the branches actually proves harder than cutting down the tree itself. Pulling out his measuring tool, he confirms the log is over 19 feet long. Next, he spots another cedar, chops it down, and strips its branches too. Both logs easily pass the test, so he chops them down to 15 feet. From the leftover branches, he gathers 1-inch thick pieces to make some rungs. He chops them into 16-inch sticks, then begins hauling the lumber back. Transporting the heavy logs takes 2 full trips, followed by the 10 short sticks. The last of the leafy cedar branches are bundled up and carried in one go. After dumping the wood beneath the giant rock, he starts building his escape route. Using his military shovel, he carves 1-inch notches every 16 inches. He makes 10 precise grooves on each side, then aligns the parallel logs. Next, he hammers the short wooden rungs deep into those matching notches. Crafting a ladder with a basic military shovel is pretty crude, but it works. To secure everything, he tightly binds each rung to the frame with strong vines. The absolute last thing he needs is a loose step breaking while climbing up. Once finished, the ladder is incredibly heavy, but he can still lug it around. He drags it over to the first boulder, leaning it against the shorter side. That particular wall is only 13.5 feet high right at the entrance. Holding a flickering torch, he carefully climbs up and finally reaches the flat summit. The surface is covered in thick moss and slimy bird droppings, pretty nasty. Still, the top is surprisingly flat, offering over 300 square feet of space. The neighboring rocks look similar, but the slippery moss makes nighttime exploring too dangerous. Instead, he focuses on the natural gap, where the offset boulders form a perfect groove. This natural channel serves as a guardrail, bordered by walls nearly 18 feet high. The gap itself sits at 13.5 feet, creating a solid defensive bunker. It forms a snug channel 4 feet deep, 2 feet wide, and 3 feet long. Stepping directly into the tight groove, he peers down over the front edge. Right below him lies the empty shelter, time to get his gear inside. He wedges his torch into a crevice, climbs down, and grabs the cedar bundle. He hauls them up the ladder and tosses them down into his new home. Dragging the ladder up is more about balance and precision than raw strength. Bracing one hand on the rock, he pulls the ladder up with the other. He aligns it in the groove and gently slides it down into the dark enclosure. With everything ready, he climbs down, officially entering his fortress from the sky. The interior is 17 by 10 feet, offering a massive 170 square feet. This space is incredibly huge, but the bonfire inside is almost out. He throws on some dry wood, spreads out the cedar branches, and collapses. After surviving a brutal day in the pitch-black woods, these thick stone walls protect him. He can finally let his guard down. This safety is exactly what he wanted. Building this complicated shelter was exhausting, but out here, safety beats easy convenience. Having an entrance high up in the air beats any ground doorway. It is a low gap just wide enough for a beast to nose through. The same rock wall flaw has become his secret entrance, a tiny bit of good luck squeezed out of a bad situation. Squeezing in and out is pretty awkward for now, but he can fix that later. He skipped picking a tent, sleeping bag, or any real overnight gear, so sleeping on cedar branches beside a rough fire pit is all he has. The cave is enclosed, the fire is warm, and for tonight, that is enough. Before sleeping, he opens the global chat channel to see if any helpful tips have popped up. A player named Gapong just posted in update with the system announcing he has listed 10 homemade torches on the public trading platform. Gapong claims these finished torches can burn steadily for 1 whole hour, trading them for food, dry wood, or other resources while showing everyone that he has uploaded a tutorial video on his crafting process. Naturally, his followers swarm the shop instantly, and by the time our guy checks the trading screen, every single torch is already sold out. A harsh lesson indeed. He has only checked the global chat channel a few times today, and in a fast-paced game like this, being late means losing out completely. It is just as bad as being careless. He opens the video from Gapong. Either way, the crafting method is simple enough. First, stand a thick, solid log straight up. Drill a hole straight down from the top, then make another one sideways through the middle so the fire burns from within instead of just charring. Bark, it is pretty clever, especially during this freezing polar night, where lasting light is survival itself. The main issue is not the design. It is carving those holes. Gapong used a proper hammer and chisel, so of course he can easily hollow out a log, but with only a military shovel, some vines, and his own rapidly thinning patience, he has to bookmark the idea for later. The chat is still absolutely roaring because it is barely past 10 at night on day 1 and nobody can sleep. Desperate players plead for food, beg for dry firewood, dread their freezing shelters, and panic over dying lanterns. There is even a girl offering to roleplay as an older sister type, or a cute submissive type just to get some dry wood, and players are actually debating if her voice is worth paying for by the minute. A rich heir from Gangong is offering cash for food and firewood, promising video proof and payout after the game. The Changhong Society also recruits, openly bragging that its top leaders have already beaten survival games before. Its veterans have entered more than 10 times, promising new recruits they will get veteran tips, solid protection, and monthly cash stipends of at least $3,000 plus invitation cards for top performers. This is the new shape of this world now, pure panic on one side, and syndicates fishing for members on the other. People debate if the rich heir is trustworthy, whether the Changhong Society demands too much from member payouts, and if the rumored Guamyang Special Operations Group is actually a military unit built from elite forces. The government clearly has not been sitting idle since this survival game started, and plenty of players cling to that hope for comfort. He watches the flood of messages without joining in. He has stone walls, food, and a cheat in his grasp, so he is not desperate enough to sell his future for some group slogan. The quieter discussions are just as useful as those grand recruiting pitches. A few players wonder if anyone actually added that girl charging dry wood just to on the chat. Others admit they spent valuable wood just to hear a pleasant voice for a few minutes before she asked for more. A few are still tempted by the Gang Seong wealth rich heir, but since nobody can promise they will pay before the game ends, it makes this deal feel like a debt note written in fog. Meanwhile, the Shang Society draws serious attention because outside organizations like that have already appeared in the real world since this survival game arrived. They offer guidance and protection, but players who earn rewards inside the game usually have to give the organization a cut, showing that even help has teeth. The Yamyang Special Operations Group sounds different because it is tied directly to the military, built to clear survival games, not recruit ordinary people. Then the system announces that Yabibium has listed 10 portions of black bear meat, each about 7 ounces. On the trading platform, they prefer extraordinary items or game coins, though a large amount of dry wood is acceptable as well. The chat channel freezes for a beat and then explodes, with players wondering how anyone found and killed a black bear in this Darkness, whether the hunter is cheating, and what extraordinary items even are. Before that shock settles, Bang Yomo lists 12 portions of giant lizard meat, each about 18 ounces, asking to trade for other meat at a 1.5-to-1 ratio. Because she simply does not want to eat lizard meat, everyone nearly loses their minds at the idea of being picky in a survival game, but the giant lizard meat disappears instantly. Another player with a strange symbol handle lists 6 portions of black striped python meat, each about 18 ounces, asking for dry wood with the highest bidder winning. At that point, the chat turns helpless, because ordinary players are starving, while others sell meat from large predators. Our protagonist looks at his own supplies, one fish weighing just over 11 ounces, and 46 pieces of water snail meat weighing 10 grams each. He wants to trade for the giant lizard meat, but it is gone before he can even make a move. When the black striped python meat appears, he keeps the firewood needed for the night, bids with all his remaining dry wood, and hopes a lucky break can turn one successful trade into several meals. A short while later, his wood is returned and the python meat is gone. The giant lizard trade leaves the channel stunned for another reason. Someone had to exchange enough other meat to meet the Bang Mio terms, which means another player is sitting on a pile of food large enough to treat 6 kilograms of lizard meat as a simple flavor preference. The black striped python listing proves the same point again, only colder. Some players are already hunting big carnivores in the dark, while most players are counting berries and praying the fire lasts. He cannot tell whether those elite survivors have extraordinary items, team support, better terrain, or just terrifying luck. What is absolutely clear is that the gap between ordinary players and the top players is already opening wide on this first night. 100,000 players make even a lucky man feel crowded. The chat channel grows even more active after the meat listings, with people begging the big shots for python meat, hunting tips, or pity scraps. He closes the channel and prepares to sleep, because staring at other people eating will not fill his stomach. Beside the campfire, exhaustion wins quickly. At 3 in the morning, the clock in his private channel rings, and he wakes because 6 hours has passed. The dice is ready to spin again, and food is his absolute first priority. He pulls out 4 skewers of water snail meat from his backpack. After eating 200 grams last night, he has 46 pieces left, each weighing 10 grams. Tying 4 skewers together gives the dice a clear bundle to lock onto. He summons the egg-sized dice into his right palm. Seeing that every pip has turned back to gold, he focuses on multiplying the size of the food bundle in his left hand. The dice locks on, spins, and stops on 5 pips. 5 glowing phantom bundles materialize, and the sight instantly jolts him wide awake. A 5 is incredibly rare, and in all the time he has owned this dice, he has never rolled a 6 or a 1, a detail that feels less coincidental the more he thinks about it. The freshwater snail meat appears, leaving him with 6 bundles and 24 skewers total, or 276 pieces of 10-gram meat. That is over 5 pounds of food, more than enough to solve his immediate hunger crisis. He packs the meat into his backpack, tosses fresh firewood onto the brazier, and drifts back to sleep. On day 2 of the survival game, he wakes around 8 in the morning, tidies up, and climbs the ladder to the opening in the stone wall. Outside, everything is still pitch black, so he lifts his torch and heads for the animal traps. His first task today is to check if those 12 traps actually brought home any results. He hikes past scattered boulders, pushes through the forest, descends a massive slope, and follows the little creek to the trap line. The good news is that he locates every trap. The bad news: every single trap is completely empty. It seems animal traps rely heavily on blind luck if left without bait, so he places 1 piece of water snail meat in each trap as bait. If wild beasts are roaming nearby, they can pay him for his food with their own bodies. Back at his shelter, it is already around 9 in the morning, so he roasts 2 skewers of water snail meat for breakfast, while keeping an eye on the world chat channel. He resolves to check it during any downtime, missing the torch deal from Gapong still stings more than he wants to admit. Just then, a player starts bragging that his animal trap caught a short-legged rabbit, yielding around 30 ounces of meat and a rabbit skin, making everyone else incredibly jealous. He adds Gubo as a friend immediately, proposing a direct trade of water snail meat for an equal weight of rabbit meat. Gubo accepts the request quickly and then asks if he is absolutely sure about swapping water snail meat for rabbit, and he says he simply cannot survive on the same food forever. Gubo asks if he has a massive stockpile of water snail meat, but he plays it cool, claiming he just wants a change of pace. And that Gubo probably does not want to eat nothing but rabbit meat either. Gubo agrees but asks to inspect the water snail meat first, suggesting a trade of half a pound. He offers 300 grams instead since he has 3 skewers ready, and Gubo agrees. He sends over the trade request with 3 skewers of hot, roasted water snail meat. Gubo lists 300 grams of rabbit meat, and after quick confirmation, it lands right in his hand. Talk about a sweet deal. The water snail meat was produced by the dice, and the rabbit meat can be multiplied later. Every roll is basically a guaranteed win. He tells Gubo they can swap food again when the chance comes, and Gubo agrees. Then a brilliant realization hits him. Food is not the only thing he can trade and multiply. He asks Gubo what survival tools he chose, and after trading a few messages, he finds out Gubo has a fire starter, lantern, animal trap, hacksaw, and a waterproof tarp. He immediately spots the fatal flaw in Gubo's setup. The man has no way to. He wants to boil water. Both his tin bucket and shovel can do it. But that small shovel only heats 1 mouthful. Still, this trade builds trust. Trust with Gubo matters. Yes, it matters way more than the meat itself. If he had started by asking to borrow tools, any player would suspect a scam, but after a done deal, their chat has weight. Snail meat is tender. It tastes much better than roasted rabbit. Gubo has every reason to trade. Snail meat is tender, so Gubo has a solid reason to swap. He is also building a shelter. Tools are life. For him, they are as vital as food. The second Gubo lists his tools, that small hacksaw becomes the main target. Gubo says that small hacksaw is the only tool he can lend, and he wants to trade it for a military shovel to build his shelter today. The trade is agreed. He closes the chat. No shovel for him. He is no fool. Pay attention, because his cheat code dice is ready to work. Cloning shovels is much safer than trusting strangers. He summons the dice, locking it onto his military shovel and rolls a 3. Boom, 3 spectral shovels appear now. Suddenly, 3 real military shovels materialize on the ground. Only then does he send one to Gubo for the hacksaw. The trade is complete. He tells Gubo that if they ever need to swap tools back, they should notify each other in advance to plan their tasks. Gubo agrees. Next, he tries to trade an unused lantern with 3 hours of battery life for Gubo's tarp, claiming he has plenty of dry firewood at his spawn point, but Gubo refuses the deal because that tarp is too vital for his shelter. Gubo even says choosing a bucket was a mistake, leaving him with no way to build. Whatever, he simply lets that comment slide, explaining his massive 4-stone wall shelter would be a complete waste of breath. Let them keep their tarp and their misplaced confidence. The rabbit meat, the small hacksaw, and clone shovels make this morning breakfast feel like a massive victory. He still has over 2,000 grams of water snail meat left over. Watch this. He lists some of his snail meat on the system. He splits 100 grams of snail meat into 10-gram pieces, asking for the same weight of other meat to swap flavors. The chat channel erupts. The system announces his listing. Players instantly complain about someone having luxury food. Just to switch flavors, they guess he spawned near a river and beg for food while he eats his roasted snails. A trade request arrives. Bang Mio offers 1,000 grams of giant lizard meat. He remembers her. She previously swore she would never eat lizard. He carefully inspects the meat. The game identifies it as edible. Trade confirmed. Snail meat texture is better than tough giant lizard meat. Seemingly, he loses value on the trade. But the magical dice changes everything. Once he duplicates this giant lizard meat, he profits immensely. Flavor does not even matter when you're starving. When you are starving, flavor is a luxury. Done. Breakfast is over. He has successfully gained 3 military shovels, 300 grams of rabbit meat, a small hacksaw, and 1,000 grams of giant lizard meat, with days of food safely secured. He can finally focus on his shelter instead of hunting for food. His 4 giant rocks provide a shell, but a shell is not home. No one knows how long this survival game will last. Time to build. He wants to properly decorate his shelter, not just survive inside a stone box. With the small hacksaw making woodworking realistic, his simple plans completely change. Instead of basic repairs, he aims for a full interior build and leaves the shelter. Holding a torch, he heads back to the giant forest where he cut thin cedars yesterday. Today he needs serious wood, a lot of it. He targets a thick cedar First, he builds a large bonfire for light and protection in the dark. Then he crouches down, working the small hacksaw back and forth, in under 10 minutes. A massive tree comes crashing down. The hacksaw is somehow way better than the military shovel for this heavy work. That trade is already paying off big time. Right then, a prompt appears on the ground, a pine oil collector. Cutting down that single massive tree dropped a rare item. He quickly picks it up. This collector is just a simple metal tube with a tiny plastic container beneath it. The game explanation states that inserting this device into a pine tree will let him automatically harvest 30 milliliters of fresh pine oil every single day. There is a really thick cedar nearby, measuring over 2 feet across. He inserts it. He secures the tool in place with his military shovel. If this works, it secures a constant fuel source, meaning a real path toward lighting freedom. A polar night world, this is not just a convenience, it is a lifeline. He opens up the chat channel to check if this amazing drop is unique. Instant answer, everyone is talking about the collector. Anyone who chopped a pine tree today got one of these. The players wonder if cutting down more trees will yield even more drops. Someone even asks if mining stone drops items, since they chose a chisel. So this is not his private luck, but a game benefit. Talk about a relief. Knowing everyone gets one does not make his device any less valuable. He goes back to the fallen cedar. The timing of this drop is almost too perfect. From the start, the heaviest pressure in this brutal survival game was the darkness. Lanterns had limited kerosene, and losing light was a constant fear. Ordinary wood fires die out quickly. A daily supply of pine oil changes everything. Now torches, lamps, and travel can become sustainable if he manages it well. It completely explains why the system pushes players to chop down trees on day 2. Without a new light source, too many players would easily be swallowed up. They would be swallowed by darkness. The collector only gives 30 milliliters daily. But that is enough to provide hope, especially with 4 collectors thanks to his dice. An actual plan, clearing branches from the cedar, takes forever. In fact, it takes longer than dropping the tree. The bare trunk measures 36 feet. After a brief rest, he chops down 2 more cedars of similar thickness. Lunch is still roasted snail meat and wild berries, followed by boiled water. By the afternoon, he switches to smaller cedars, about 4 inches thick. Because they are much easier to saw, he quickly cuts down 2 more. A little past 3, he checks the thick cedar and sees the oil collector working. It has already gathered several milliliters of pine oil. Nothing else matters right now. Fuel is everything, absolutely critical. His next move is obvious. He carefully removes the collector and summons the dice, focusing on duplicating it. It spins and stops on 3, creating 3 more collectors for his stockpile. He has 4, inserting them all into the thick cedar before starting. To process the 5 filled cedars, from the 3 thicker trunks, each more. Then 36 feet long, he cuts 9 large logs about 10 feet long, while the 2 thinner trunks become 2 long logs about 18 feet each. After that, he strips bark from all 11 logs with the military shovel. He carbonizes 1 long log by burning only its surface, preparing to turn the 9 shorter logs into boards. This carbonization is not for decoration. Wood that touches the ground faces damp soil, cold and rot, and the burned surface should last longer as a moisture barrier. He only burns the outer layer enough to blacken and harden the surface without destroying the log. The shelter cannot just be safe from beasts, it has to stay livable in bad weather and long nights. He keeps reminding himself that this survival game mentioned natural disasters, and a pretty shelter that molds, leaks, or chills him through the floor is just a slower way. To lose every ugly preparation now saves trouble later. Standard boards are the backbone of the shelter build, so he makes a black line from darkened fine vines, charcoal, ash, and water. He fixes one into a log using the measuring tool to mark the width, pulling the line straight and snapping it against the wood to leave a clean black guide. Then he saws along the guides, turning each log into 2 large wooden boards about 10 feet long, 8 inches wide, and 4 inches thick. Processing all 9 logs takes hours, but by the end, he has 18 standard wooden boards. He moves the boards, the carbonized long log, and the remaining uncarbonized long log to the open space outside the shelter. By then, it is past 8 at night, and dinner is more roasted water snail meat, because that is still the only food he has multiplied. After dinner, he checks the 12 animal traps. Traveling by torch is exhausting because the flame is unstable and needs relighting every few minutes, so this time he uses the lantern, the panel shows. The first lantern still has 123 minutes of fuel from its original 80, leaving 57 minutes. Passing the thick cedar, he checks the 4 pine oil collectors and finds they have already gathered 14 milliliters of pine oil each, with 4 collectors. Working, he no longer feels trapped by the fear of losing light, so he moves quickly through the forest and down to the little creek. The first few animal traps make his face go flat. The bait is gone, but the traps are empty, meaning something ate his meat and fled. Then, at trap 6, he sees 3 prompt messages from a distance, and the game identifies wild rat meat weighing 360 grams, 1 wild rat skin, and 63 copper coins. Pray at last, this rat is not small, and he stores the meat, the furry palm-sized skin, and the coins before. Moving on, at the 9th trap, the same 3 rewards appear again, and he realizes the bait thief may be exactly the prey he is catching, 2 wild rats. Give him 720 grams of meat, 2 skins, and 126 copper coins. Since the bait worked, he places more water snail meat in every trap, using 1 10-gram piece. Each then returns to the shelter near 9 at night. He has several food types now: rabbit meat, pincer fish meat, giant lizard meat, and wild rat meat, but he wants something to alternate with water snail meat, so he chooses rabbit for the next dice use. The dice locks onto 1 300-gram portion of rabbit meat and lands. On 3 pips, 3 new portions appear, giving him 4 portions of. He packs away the rabbit meat. Since it is still early, he starts dragging the leftover cedar branches left from his logging work, stacking them safely outside the shelter before going to sleep. Before bed, he checks the global chat and spots another crucial detail. Every survivor who chopped a pine tree today got exactly 1 pine oil collector. No matter how many extra trees they cleared, nobody ever received a second one. Everyone is strictly limited to 1, but his cheat dice changes the entire game. It turned his single collector into 4, around 3 in the morning. His alarm rings. It is finally time to execute a plan he has been holding back. He summons the magic dice, locks it onto a tin bucket, and rolls 5 pips. 5 new buckets materialize, bringing his total to 6. He wants to laugh out loud. He stores them away and falls back asleep. Sure, containers might sound boring. Until a survivor actually runs out of them. His single bucket did everything. It held berries, carried water, hauled mud, and supported cooking. Tasks constantly clashed. But having 6 buckets lets him easily separate his water, pine oil, and moss. He can store soil, mud, and food without constantly dumping resources to carry others. Using a 5-pip roll on a basic tin bucket would look ridiculous to outsiders. But out here, it means reclaiming a piece of civilization, 1 container at a time. The 3rd day begins around 8 in the morning, and he heads straight out. He checks his traps with even more excitement than yesterday. The first few are completely empty with the bait stolen, so he quickly rebaits them. At the 7th trap, the system alerts him with a brand new reward. He gets 360 grams of rat meat, 1 skin, and 63 copper coins. The rest are empty, but a morning catch is still great. He scoops up water. He fills a bucket from the creek, packs it, and heads back along the bank. He climbs up the slope and walks through the forest to the thick cedar grove. All 4 collectors are full, holding 30 milliliters each. He pours the pine oil out into a bucket, resets the collectors, and heads back. Breakfast is roasted rabbit. After eating nothing but water snail meat yesterday, he desperately needs a change of pace. He divides his 4 300-gram rabbit portions into 6 smaller 200-gram pieces. Using his handy military shovel, he roasts a fresh portion to eat with berries. The rabbit is not quite as tender as the snail meat, but it tastes amazing. After all, scarcity is the best seasoning. Around 9 in the morning, he gets busy. He prepares a massive bundle of wood, including 18 large wooden boards. They are 10 feet long, 8 inches wide, and 4 inches thick, with 2 long logs. Measuring 18 feet long, he ties all 20 pieces together with strong vines. This is not just for neatness, it is clever manipulation of the system rules. The dice requires a single defined item to lock onto. A tied bundle works perfectly. It turns a pile into 1 object. If he had a cloth large enough to wrap an entire mountain, he could probably duplicate the mountain itself. It sounds absurd, but with his dice, absurd is just a future method. He places his left hand on the heavy bundle and focuses on duplicating it. The dice locks on, spins, and lands on 4 pips. It is an amazing result. It is far better than expected after spending all day preparing the timber. 4 phantom bundles materialize, but he does not release them just yet. Moving that much lumber inside his shelter right now would waste the entire day. Every item inside would crowd the space. Fortunately, his dice keeps duplicated items safely stored until the next roll, allowing him to hold them for now, before. Making it pretty, the shelter needs serious prep work, just like a real house. Foundation. First, comfort later. That unreleased state is a tricky dice restriction he has to respect if he leaves the multiplied bundles sitting inside the dice and tries to roll it again. The next duplication will completely fail, so he has a strict deadline even if the supplies are not physically blocking him yet. The good part is that he can spawn them exactly where he needs them, turning the top of the giant rock into quick temporary storage, without that handy control. 4 extra bundles of heavy lumber would be a massive headache instead of a blessing. With it, that same wood is a streamlined building schedule. He climbs up to the gap, then up another 4 feet to the peak of the giant stone, collecting thick moss into sturdy tin buckets. 4 buckets fill up fast. With 6 metal buckets total, he can easily spare them since one keeps fresh water and another stores pine oil. Inside the shelter, he uses that gathered moss to plug the gaps where those 4 massive rocks meet. The gaps are pretty narrow, measuring from 1 inch to 3 inches wide, but they run over 3 feet deep through the joints, so he stuffs moss into them from inside as deep as possible. That thick green moss seals perfectly, and there is plenty more on those giant stone peaks. Using a handmade ladder to reach the higher joints, he spends over an hour sealing every single connection from the inside. Then he clears the shelter floor. Firewood, heavy stones, and other supplies are moved up onto the giant rock. Once the ground is finally empty, he uses his military shovel to level the dirt. The loose soil goes straight into those tin buckets. Every time 4 buckets fill, he dumps them outside. Right in the middle of the ground, right against those 2 long stone walls, he digs a pit on each side about a foot deep. Those deep pits will hold sturdy wooden pillars, with the floor fully prepped in 2 giant rocks stripped of moss. He climbs up to finally release the 4 duplicated wood bundles, placing 2 sets on each of those 2 giant stone tops where there is plenty of room. Outside the shelter, his original bundle of wood is still waiting. Next, he lights a fire in the pit beneath the giant rock and takes 2 massive wooden boards from the pile, burning one end of each for about a foot to char and protect them. The original stack also features 1 pre-charred long log, which he props up against the giant rock. He carries those 2 partially charred wooden boards over to the gap and lowers them inside. Next, he pulls that charred long log up and slides it down too. From the 4 storage bundles sitting high up on the giant rock, he also hauls down 4 more charred long logs. Now, the shelter houses 5 heavily charred logs and those 2 big boards with burnt ends. He decides not to climb down just yet because it is noon and hard work means lunch comes first. Outside the stone shelter, he roasts wild rabbit meat over the brazier and uses that trusty military shovel to boil clean water from a tin bucket. While eating, he receives a surprise message. You remember Jang Dihai, the player who traded the crossbow for 3 simple animal traps. He initially chose a fishing net, boldly claiming that he knew exactly how to fish, despite lacking a nearby water source back then. Now a trade request pops up offering grass carp meat weighing about 1¼ pounds. When he asks for clarification, the guy explains that he finally found a solid fishing spot after 2 grueling days. The animal traps he traded earlier helped catch plenty of prey on the first night. Keeping that guy alive paid off, and now he is sending some fish. Pretty solid. Food is too important to refuse, but he doesn't want to become the kind of guy who takes advantage of useful contacts for free, so he offers 3 portions of rabbit meat, 200 grams each, into the trade. Jang Dihai insists it is a gift, but our guy tells him to accept it. Everyone is short on food, and he prefers fish anyway. If they catch more later, they can trade even weight. For rabbit meat, he agrees. After confirmation, he holds a fresh piece of grass carp weighing more than a pound. This fish is a massive win because the dice can turn it into several pounds later. More importantly, Jang Dihai might truly be a skilled fisherman. A stable partner is worth keeping close. Lunch leaves him with just 1 portion of rabbit meat. He eats some, trading the rest, but this fish makes up for it, past 1 o'clock. In the afternoon, after some warm water and rest, he lifts the ladder and Descends back into the shelter. He inserts 2 large carbonized wooden boards deep into the foot-deep pits, packing them with soil to create 2 vertical wooden pillars about 9 feet high. Beside them, he lays 2 long, carbonized logs on the ground. They are slightly longer than the distance between the stone walls, so he uses a large wooden mallet to hammer the protruding ends until each log lies flat and wedges tight. He repeats the process with the other 3 long logs, creating 5 solid, moisture-proof beams on the floor. A real shelter needs way more than just walls and fire. It needs safety, warmth, waterproofing, and basic comfort, or the wilderness will slowly grind him down, one bad night at a time. Carbonized cedar can resist rot for years, keeping his future floor off the damp ground. He climbs back to the giant rock to collect 4 buckets of thick moss, spreading it into the gaps between the floor logs as an insulation layer. Next, he lowers 27 large raw wooden boards from the rock into his shelter. One by one, he lays them down, measuring the distance between the stone walls and trimming a centimeter or 2 with his small hacksaw whenever the fit gets too tight. Each board is about 10 feet long, while the space between the walls is 10 feet with a little extra. He intentionally keeps that extra length so the uneven stone walls wedge them tightly in place. They lie side by side with no gaps, and by the 27th board, the entire ground inside the stone wall is covered in wood flooring. He jumps on it to test things out. The floor does not budge. This 4-inch thick cedar is heavier and stronger than necessary, since even thinner boards would probably work, but absolute solidity matters when this is the surface he will live on every single day. Once the floor is finished, it is past 3 in the afternoon and his dice is ready again. Wanting some roasted fish, he grabs the catfish meat he shot earlier, a portion weighing about 11 ounces, and summons the dice. It locks onto the catfish, spins, and lands on 3, giving him 3 extra portions for 4 portions total. He leaves the food safe inside the shelter, empties his backpack, and heads to the little creek for stones. He needs rocks about 8 to 12 inches across, and there are plenty near the water. Anything he can lift goes straight into his backpack with a thought, but stones too. He cannot lift anything too heavy, proving the backpack still respects his physical limits. Once the bag is packed with a cubic meter of stones, he returns to the shelter. He unloads them inside. The screen displays his backpack as a giant frame. With a thought, he can select any visible stone, pulling it right into his hand to place exactly where it belongs. Next, he digs up some soil. Shoveling a moist patch outside, he soon fills 4 tin buckets with thick mud. Materials are ready. He chooses the innermost left corner down the stairs, where giant boulders meet. A proper fireplace here is absolutely critical, because an open bonfire inside a wooden shelter is pure suicide. He lays down stones over a 3 by 3 foot square in the corner, leaning them against the stone walls for a fireproof base. Mud goes over them, smoothed down with his military shovel. On this solid foundation, he builds a circular fireplace. Measuring 16 inches inside, he coats the stones with plenty of wet mud, adding another ring upward, while leaving a 10-inch opening in front to feed the firewood. Next, he seals the top with stones, leaving a small chimney opening near the boulder joint. The chimney exploits the natural right angle where both rocks meet, packing mud into the gap and leaning 8-inch stones against it to form a triangular passage. At roughly 6.5 feet high, he leaves a smoke exhaust gap of 8 inches, then continues building upward to cap the passage at over 7 feet. The finished fireplace stands 3 feet high and nearly 2.5 feet wide. Now watch closely. He lights a fire and watches the chimney. If the smoke fails to vent properly, the entire shelter becomes unlivable. His strong walls cannot save him. Luckily, smoke flows right through the triangular passage and out the designated gap. Finally, he can relax. Fire inside is a blessing only when controlled, otherwise it is just absolute disaster. Now the build continues right on top of the giant rock. He originally had 72 wooden boards, and after using 27 for the floor, 45 boards and 4 heavy logs remain. He lowers 2 logs and 23 boards down into the shelter, then climbs down. The vertical pillars are waiting, so he lays a long log across one pillar, adjusting it before hammering the raised side with his wooden mallet until it wedges tightly between the stone walls. The second log goes up next, successfully creating 2 solid beams inside the shelter. These carry the second floor. A mistake here means death. Laying the upper floorboards is just like laying the ground floor. Except failure drops heavy cedar right onto his head. He places 23 boards one by one across the beams, making sure every single board wedges tightly. Between the giant rocks, he leaves a stair opening over 2.5 feet wide so he can move up and down comfortably when the final board is set. The shelter finally has 2 complete floors. The ground floor ceiling height is about 9 feet, incredibly close to an ordinary, comfortable home. He climbs to the second floor, jumps hard, and the heavy boards do not budge, making that 4-inch thick cedar worth every single exhausting saw stroke. The gap from the second floor to the rock top is another 8 feet, giving the upper floor plenty of headroom. This will easily become a fully independent bedroom. Massively expanding his survival space, he climbs right up to the very top to count. Here is what is left: 22 large wooden boards, 2 massive logs, and 16 more outside. Boards and 1 large log sit outside. Leaving all this extra timber behind would be a complete waste. But the clock is ticking. It is already past 7 in the evening, so dinner comes first. He needs a quick break. First, he divides those 4 duplicated portions of fresh catfish. Each piece is about 11 ounces, which he cuts down into 6 portions of roughly 7 ounces. Out here, food is incredibly scarce. Just 1 extra portion means staying alive for another full day. He roasts a piece over the newly built fireplace. After days of rough eating, it tastes amazing. Finishing off the fish with a few wild berries, he steps outside his shelter once again. Time to check those 12 animal traps. Along the way, he stops to inspect the pine oil collectors. They are performing beautifully. Each collector has already gathered 13 milliliters of thick pine oil. He pushes deep into the forest, heading down the steep slope toward the little creek. He begins inspecting his setup. The first few traps are empty, so he keeps baiting them with snail meat. At the 5th trap, a familiar holographic notification flashes from a distance. He gets 360 grams of wild rat meat, 1 pelt, and 63 copper coins. Checking all 12 traps reveals a total harvest of 2 wild rats. He now has 5 portions of rat meat, each weighing 360 grams. Along with 5 rat skins, luck is taking a very practical shape for him tonight. This luck is made of fresh meat, tough pelts, and shiny copper coins. Following the creek back to the shelter, he decides not to head inside just yet. Instead, he hauls the remaining timber outside onto the giant rock face. He props the massive log against the gap, but those 16 heavy boards must go up individually. The grueling task takes over half an hour. Finally, he moves the ladder and climbs down inside. Stepping onto the first floor, he realizes the shelter has completely transformed. A flat, solid wooden floor now stretches out beneath his feet. With the fireplace burning warmly, this level finally feels like a real, cozy home. No longer a messy construction site, he sits down to add firewood and simply rest. By 9 at night, his magical system dice is fully charged. Food remains his top priority. He binds those 5 portions of rat meat together tightly with a thick vine. Summoning the dice, he focuses his mind entirely on duplicating this bundle of meat. It spins and lands on 4 pips, instantly conjuring 4 glowing phantom strings. A massive load of meat materializes in his hands, forcing him to adjust his grip under the weight. He now has 25 portions, totaling 18 pounds of solid, nourishing wild rat meat. Eating just over a pound a day, this food supply will easily last him half a month. With more than half a month of food secured, the relief is almost physical. His exhaustion vanishes completely. He climbs back up to find 38 more boards on the rock. Along with 3 large logs, he starts moving the boards down to the second floor. From there, he carries them down to the first floor in heavy, exhausting batches. Beginning with 18 boards, he lays them out neatly and grabs his small handsaw. He carefully trims 7 of the boards to exactly 9 feet and 2 inches. The deep left corner of the room is already dedicated to his 3x3-foot stone fireplace. The entire right side is destined to become his cozy, secure bedroom corner. Against the solid front stone wall, he mounts the 7 newly cut wooden boards. They fit flawlessly, sealing the drafty gap between the solid floor and the ceiling. Next, he secures 11 boards, each 8 feet 10 inches, against the right wall. The overhead structural beam dictates this shorter length, keeping the wall perfectly level. After fitting all 18 boards between the stone pillars, the corner gets solid wooden walls. This encloses an area roughly 7 feet by 4.5 feet, instantly improving the bedroom. Stone is safe, sure, but wood actually makes the space feel like a real home. With 20 boards still left upstairs, he brings down 8 more, cutting 6 of them. These are trimmed to 6 feet 11 inches, while the last 2 become 4-foot pieces. These will form his bed. He stacks 2 pairs of those shorter cuts inside the corner. They serve as the bed legs, and then he lays the 6 longer boards across them. It stands 1 foot high, nearly 7 feet long, and holds firm when he lies down. The heavy cedar boards do not budge or shift a single bit under his weight. This 4-inch thick rustic bed is a massive upgrade from sleeping on the cold ground. Honestly, compared to a pile of leaves, this thing is a straight-up luxury palace. He still has 12 large boards upstairs, which he needs to bring down next. He carries them down and cuts each one to about 9 feet 2 inches long. He plans to build a partition near the left entrance to match the fireplace. This division will keep things clean and drastically lower any potential fire hazards. After all, a single stray spark landing on loose wood chips could cause absolute disaster. Designated storage wall keeps the firewood and extra gear safely contained. Real survival is not just finding food, it is about preventing stupid mistakes. He builds the partition using 5 boards across and 7 boards stretching inward. This forms a compact, open storage area inside his survival shelter. He leaves narrow gaps between the planks, since each board is only 8 inches wide. Spacing them out stretches the horizontal side of the structure to about 5 feet. The inward side runs roughly 6.5 feet, requiring no solid walls. This open design feels much more practical and looks cleaner than a sealed crate. The entrance faces the hearth, leaving about 8.5 feet of space. This gives him plenty of room to move around comfortably while working. Even with just 170 square feet, the ground floor is now divided. It now features a fireplace, a sleeping corner, and an organized firewood station. This makes the whole shelter look way cleaner. Meanwhile, 3 large logs still remain. They sit on top of the giant rock, and he already has a plan. Climbing back up, he lights a second lantern since his first one ran dry. The old kerosene lantern is completely spent, so he starts processing the wood. Under the fresh glow, he measures the logs. Each is just under 18 feet long. He saws 1 log into 11 short sections, each roughly 20 inches long. Next, he carves 11 matching grooves, each 4 inches long and 2 inches deep. He then cuts matching notches into both ends of the shorter wood rungs. He sets the long logs parallel, fitting the 11 short rungs between them. He hammers every connection tight with a wooden mallet until it secures firmly. The frame locks together. This new ladder is massive compared to his first one. Luckily, the handy hacksaw made this process way faster than using that old shovel. He pulls the old ladder up and lowers the massive new one down. He sets it inside the shelter's opening, which sits about 13.5 feet high. Since the new ladder is almost 18 feet long, the climb is incredibly gentle. Going down with a lit lantern is so much safer and easier now. Since this massive ladder is too heavy to drag around daily, it stays inside. He builds a permanent stair, while the small ladder remains his outside access to the giant rock opening. Having 2 ladders means entering and leaving the shelter finally stops. Feeling like a nerve-wracking balance test, all 5 bundles of lumber are used up and his 2 days of styling the shelter are basically done. The word decorating feels like a joke after that brutal grind, but results matter more than labels. The first floor has a fireplace bedroom corner, storage partition, a wooden floor, and a second floor above. He can live here for a very long time if nothing breaks it. Scraps from 38 boards still litter the ground, but those small pieces work perfectly as firewood. He feeds 2 scraps into the fireplace, watches the flames brighten, and stacks the rest neatly in the tiny storage compartment. Once the floor is clean, the night is so deep his exhausted body stops negotiating. He lies down on the wooden bed and crashes immediately, completely wiped out from another long day of cutting, hauling, fitting, and hammering. The fireplace warms up the first floor, while thick wooden boards trap heat far better than bare stone ever could. Around 3 in the morning, his alarm rings, waking him for the dice cooldown. Shelter construction is finished for now, making his next priority security outside the stone walls, where food and firewood still wait in the pitch black. He grabs his crossbow and 3 arrows prepared earlier, ties them together, and summons the dice. His activity stayed near the shelter lately with bonfires keeping wild beasts away, but venturing farther out raises the danger of attacks. More crossbows mean he can preload shots instead of relying on a single slow reload. The heat of battle, the dice locks on, spins and lands on 2 pips, after 2. Lucky 5-pip rolls on the past nights. A simple 2 feels like cold water, but 2 extra weapons and 6 extra arrows give him 3 crossbows and 9 arrows total. He stores them and drifts back to sleep. Morning arrives around 8, marking the 4th day of the survival game, and he cooks breakfast with roasted catfish. His food reserves are still massive in the best possible way. With 380 grams of snail, a 200-gram portion of rabbit, 5 portions of catfish at 7 ounces each, and 25 extra portions of wild rat meat at 360 grams each, totaling 18 pounds. He adds firewood, roasts his catfish, and opens the chat channel while it cooks. Plenty of players are still struggling to survive, making his rapid 2-day upgrade look incredibly fast. Sleep was short, but at least he slept. Behind real walls, after breakfast, he climbs through the giant rock opening and examines his shelter from above. The top is left open on purpose because he plans to use the 2nd floor for wood storage before building a roof ceiling. The roof now would make hauling firewood through a tiny opening absolutely miserable. His roofing plan is already set since he spotted a giant blue stone slab near the creek, planning to use the dice to multiply it later for coverage. The magic dice turns construction problems into simple timing problems, which is a much easier category of trouble. He lowers the small ladder outside, climbs down, and sets up a target 30 feet from a giant tree. He loads all 3 crossbows, keeping one ready while storing the others. He packs the loaded crossbows into his backpack. The first arrow strikes the massive tree, and then he swaps the empty weapon out, pulls a freshly loaded one, and fires again, repeating the whole cycle with the 3rd one. 3 arrows fly in mere seconds, proving his rapid-fire damage is way better than shooting, manual reloading, and shooting again. If a beast charges him, and they will, those seconds mean life or becoming dinner. Reloading is the real pain, pulling back the heavy strings, loading the arrow. Aiming and letting loose takes way too much time, even with intense focus, so he keeps drilling the motion until his hands just learn it. He shoots all 9 arrows, gathers them up, reloads the weapons, and starts over. First, 3 rapid-fire shots, then those slower manual reload shots into the massive tree. Over 30 minutes later, his movements with the crossbow are definitely getting smoother. Sure, it is not the exact same as being some master hunter, but at least he is not fumbling like a total amateur trying to read instructions during a beast attack. That is huge progress out here. Crossbow practice wraps up, and the real daily grind begins. He heads over to the giant cedar tree in the forest, the massive one over 2 feet thick, where his 4 pine oil collectors are mounted, and all 4 are completely full. Since each holds 30 milliliters, he empties 120 milliliters into his bucket, which already contains yesterday's harvest. That brings the total to 240 milliliters. He carefully resets all 4 collectors back into the cedar. Since it is past 9 in the morning, his magic dice is ready for another roll, and this resource is way too precious to waste. He dips his finger into the liquid and focuses hard. The system dice locks onto the oil itself, ignoring the container since that was already duplicated before and cannot be doubled again. The dice rattles to a stop on 4 pips. 4 pale clumps of pine oil float right above it before he drops them in. That initial 240 milliliters multiplies into a massive 1,200 milliliters. Only then does he pull out the empty lantern, fills it up with 30 milliliters of the fresh oil, and watches. The wick ignites without any issues, and the system panel quickly identifies it as a standard pine oil lantern. It can burn for a solid 180 minutes, shedding light 23 feet around him, though it will definitely break if it gets damaged. Pine oil lasts the same 3 hours as kerosene, even if the glowing area is a bit smaller than the old 33 feet limit, but honestly that small loss is completely fine because he now has enough fuel for 120 hours of light. And those 4 collectors are still generating more daily. Constant illumination is no longer just a distant dream, but a real stat he holds right in his bucket. Now he can finally travel through the darkness without wasting precious dry wood on makeshift torches. He makes his way through the dense forest, descends a steep slope, and reaches a little creek, checking his 12 animal traps first. Let's see if there is another trapped wild rat. The system rewards him with 360 grams of meat, a skin, and 63 shiny copper coins. He carefully packs the loot away and resets all 12 traps using water snail meat as bait. That leaves him with only 260 grams of snail bait remaining, but the investment has totally paid off. Grabbing his lantern and military shovel, he heads further downstream, keeping his eyes glued to the muddy banks. Snail meat is his source of food, bait, and the closest thing to a reliable resource out here. As long as he sweeps the creek thoroughly, he can usually secure enough. Berries are vital too, since eating roasted meat every day, skipping on fresh fruits and greens, will quickly break down his body in this harsh world. Thick trees and wild bushes crowd the creek banks, fed by the constant water flow. He carefully pushes into the thick brush whenever it feels safe, never straying too far. In this suffocating, pitch-black forest, the stream is his only actual road back to safety. He keeps a slow, steady pace, collecting tiny water snails clinging to the stream bed. He plucks wild berries from the banks, keeping his lantern tight to illuminate the dark path. Suddenly, a wild deer bolts right past him, forcing him back a step in sheer panic. His survival instincts kick in, that is fresh meat. He grabs his crossbow and starts chasing. But the shadows swallow the animal whole before he can even line up a shot. It is the first big beast he has encountered here, and the lesson is brutally clear. Massive targets mean absolutely nothing if he cannot even see well enough to hunt them down. He presses on, gathering clean water, sour berries, and dry firewood along the way. Wood is not his primary light source anymore, but he still needs it for starting cooking fires. While combing through the dark brush, his fingers brush against a thick, leafy vine. The system notification alerts him. It is a white gourd, and it is fully edible. Since there is no hanging fruit, he uses his military shovel to dig deep into the roots. He unearths 2 massive gourds that look exactly like sweet potatoes. More importantly, it is clean vegetarian food, so he digs up 12 gourds in total. Finding that single wild patch makes this entire dangerous excursion completely worth the effort. These 12 gourds can easily become a permanent, self-sustaining food supply if he replants them later. Frankly, having anything to eat other than tough, roasted beast meat feels like a pure luxury. He moves downstream, touching plants and waiting for a helpful system pop-up. But this hunting method is agonizingly slow, and over 2 hours slip by in the dark. It is already nearly 1 o'clock, meaning it is time to eat before pushing any deeper. He scans the bank for a clear, dry spot near the water to build a fire. Just as he prepares to settle down, a sudden bright light flickers in the distance. He freezes instantly, realizing another player is out there, and that player has spotted him too. The distant light stops moving, and the brutal law of the dark forest immediately takes over. 2 strangers meeting in the dark, with no clue if the other is hostile. Running away is useless because they are sharing the exact same river path anyway. With only an hour of distance between them along this narrow water, confrontation is bound to happen. He resolves to face the stranger head-on to gauge his strength and assess any hidden danger. If the stranger wants a fight, the triple-loaded crossbow on his tactical shovel will answer. He steps forward cautiously as the other player begins moving toward him as well. This only heightens his guard. Anyone walking confidently toward a stranger must have a trump card. As their lights merge, he spots a massive, burly figure emerging from the trees. Standing well over 6 feet tall, this brute possesses the kind of build built for violence. Even before hunger and desperation kick in, his stomach sinks at the sight of him. Crossing paths with a powerful player when resources are scarce is never a good sign. The giant calls out, demanding to know if he is the traveler coming from upstream. But the moment the giant spots the deadly crossbow, his tough guy act completely crumbles. It is almost comical how fast the big man stutters out a warning about the weapon. He immediately invents a clumsy excuse about leaving some boiling water unattended back at camp. He retreats steadily while talking, putting at least 30 feet of safe distance between them. A loaded crossbow does what pure muscle cannot, forcing even the biggest threat to stay polite. He stops the man before he can run, asking if he's the downstream player. The man admits it. Now the giant is calling him Big Brother with over-the-top politeness, so he proposes a simple boundary. Downstream is the giant's territory, upstream is his. The giant agrees instantly, promising he will never venture upstream again. He even wishes him good luck before leaving. He lowers his weapon. Today's exploration is officially over. The quick trek back upstream is much faster since he is no longer scanning every single bush along the way. He reaches the shelter shortly after 2 p.m., having left around 9 in the morning. He used 50 milliliters of pine oil, but man, this haul is insane. Over 3 pounds of berries, 157 water snails, 12 white gourds, and heaps of dry firewood, but here's the catch, he now knows there's a powerful player. Living downstream, territory is everything now in his quiet hideout. Cannot rely on darkness alone to stay hidden. Back inside, he lights the fireplace and cooks up the very last piece of juicy rabbit meat for his lunch. By the time he finishes eating, it is past 3, and his magical dice is ready again. That tense meeting with the burly player leaves him with some heavy pressure because 100,000 competitors are here, and he will definitely encounter more. When food gets scarce, players will not politely share a river. If he wants to survive, his shelter must become incredibly strong and extremely hard to find. Right now, his tracks are dead giveaways. If anyone gets close, he has built fires, chopped down massive trees, and left behind fresh stumps that scream human presence. If someone follows those obvious clues, his hidden base among the rocks will be completely exposed. He must erase these signs, or at least blend everything into the natural wilderness. Anyone searching should see nothing and keep on walking, while anyone seeing giant boulders should avoid wandering into them. Conveniently, the rocky area behind his shelter has plenty of massive stones. He selects one jagged boulder over 10 feet tall and 16 feet wide, perfect to hide a tree stump, then rolls his magic dice. The result is 3 pips spawning 3 giant boulders. He moves the new rocks over 3 of his 7 old tree stumps, then covers the disturbed soil with tree branches, green moss, and loose leaves. Since the rocks are already covered in natural moss under the weak lantern glow, they look absolutely natural, as if they have been here forever. These first 3 placed rocks spark a brilliant defense strategy. From the creek straight to his base, the forest path is the obvious route, but these new obstacles now block it, turning the entire terrain into a massive stone barrier. If he continues adding these giant rocks, the entire area between the creek and his home can become a confusing maze, hiding the path completely. Intruders will think twice before entering a dark jumble of massive boulders, and even if they do, they will never spot the narrow entrance to his hidden sanctuary. Building a defensive wall using pure, natural confusion is exactly his kind of style. He also camouflages his old fire pits with dirt and leaves, checks the hour, and immediately begins chopping down more firewood. His base does not need torches as urgently now, but he still needs fuel for cooking and staying warm. The survival system of polar night wilderness survival warns him that the brutal, freezing cold will only get worse. He cannot harvest trees carelessly anymore. Preserving the forest's natural look is crucial, so he picks out white birches and cedars about 4 to 8 inches thick. His small hacksaw drops each tree quickly, but chopping branches and trunks into 3-foot logs and hauling them back takes much longer. With his backpack stuffed in his bare arms carrying the rest, every single tree still requires 2 or 3 trips. From a little past 3 until after 8 at night, he cuts down 5 trees and stacks a massive amount of firewood neatly on the second floor. Dinner is just roasted catfish in the fireplace, but before he finishes eating, Jang Dihai sends a message. He says he caught a fish and remembers that he likes eating fish, so he wants to trade it. The trade request shows a grass carp weighing 450 grams. He offers 500 grams of wild rat meat. In return, Jang Dihai worries he is getting too much since his fish weighs less, but he tells him to treat the round number as a win since he prefers fish, and he accepts. Giving Jang Dihai extra is not simple generosity without math behind it. He has about 18 pounds of rat meat, so 1 pound less does not hurt him, while a reliable fish supplier is worth keeping around. The grass carp can be multiplied later, turning one trade into several meals, and Jang Dihai has already proven he can keep finding fish. After dinner, it is past 9, and he returns to the rocky area behind the shelter for another dice roll. He chooses a larger irregular stone, wool 4 pips, and places the 4 new stones over the remaining old stumps, setting each at a different angle, so no repeated shape gives away the trick. All 7 of the old stumps are now pressed under massive stones, and the barrier between the little creek and the shelter grows wider. Walking among the stones already feels like entering a maze. The 5 trees he cut today still leave 5 fresh stumps exposed, but those can be handled later. Before sleeping, he checks the 12 animal traps and finds a reward at the 3rd trap, then 2 more before the line ends. 3 wild rats in one night give him 3 portions of meat, 3 wild rat skins, and 189 copper. Coins, honestly, who wouldn't believe in bait after a haul like that? Back at the shelter, it is past 10 at night, and he finally opens the chat channel properly. For the first time in days, the channel is filled with hunger because by the fourth day, many players are surviving on berries and luck, while meat remains rare. Gapong appears again, warning that the early stage of a one-star survival game is not too hard because of the novice protection mechanism, but after 7 days, difficulty will definitely rise. He urges everyone to store edible food. Survive one more day if they can, and hold on for later benefits and a balance mechanism that might give struggling players a chance. The advice is highly useful. And as a wilderness survival internet celebrity, he is also building a reputation that will follow him out of the game. The channel responds with panic jokes and sheer desperation. Some players say they cannot even find enough to eat now, so storing food sounds impossible. Others ask Gapong to explain the later balance mechanism, beg for food, or complain that another player robbed them and even tried to kill them. One message catches his attention because a player with a camping pot wants to borrow a military shovel to build a shelter. He remembers that player because he tried to add him earlier and never got no reply. Now he needs what he has. He contacts the player and he adds him back under the name Dong Jung. He asks if he has a military shovel and he confirms it. The guy explains that plenty of people want that camping pot, but his priority is a military shovel. He is desperate enough to trade the pot for 3 days, but our protagonist pushes for 7. The guy counters with 5 days and refuses to budge, leaving him no choice but to agree. But there is a condition. He must return the pot every single morning, noon, and night. Whenever the owner needs to cook, he gets it back, though he keeps it the rest of the day. It is a pretty annoying hassle, but a real cooking pot is absolutely worth the trouble. He sends over the shovel, the trade goes through, and a sturdy soup-style pot suddenly appears. It sits right in front of him, about 4 inches deep and 10 inches wide, complete with a lid. The size is perfect for one person, meaning he can finally boil clean water and cook actual meals. No more surviving on just dry, roasted meat. He places it by the bed and sleeps with a grin. He skips hiding. Progress arrives one pot at a time. It is now 3 a.m. The alarm wakes him up, and that new pot is the obvious target. He rolls his dice, praying for some decent luck, but it lands on a measly 2. That is the second night in a row with bad luck, but 2 extra pots are still useful. Since he still has to return the original borrowed pot to Dong Jung, these copies are pure profit. He pulls out the 2 duplicated pots, packs them away carefully, and goes back to sleep. He rests until 7 in the morning, and Dong Jung texts him almost the second he wakes up. The man wants the pot back to cook his breakfast. Our guy agrees to the request without hesitation. He hits accept, returning the borrowed pot while taking back his own military shovel. Dong Jung promises to trade it right back after breakfast, and he simply nods along. Sure, he already has 2 duplicate pots now, but keeping his word is still important. Ruining his reputation over a piece of gear he already copied would be incredibly foolish. It is a tedious back and forth, but once the deal ends, he gets to keep the massive advantage. Soon, the 5th day begins with a quick breakfast, followed by some intense crossbow practice. After that, he heads to the massive cedar tree to gather another 120 milliliters of pine oil. He gets this fresh batch from the 4 collectors, but keeping his oils sorted is vital. Multiplied oil cannot mix with the raw, fresh stuff if he wants to stay organized. So he grabs another tin bucket for the new batch. 6 buckets now form a solid inventory. He allocates 1 bucket for water, 1 for the old oil, 1 for the fresh harvest. The remaining ones are left open for daily chores. Simple tools really are lifesavers out here. Around 9 in the morning, he decides to use his dice on another large stone. Those 5 trees he chopped down yesterday left some pretty obvious stumps that he needs to hide. The dice lands on 3, allowing him to place 3 heavy rocks right over those fresh stumps. He carefully camouflages them with dry leaves and moss before heading out to check his animal traps. He is feeling a lot more optimistic today, especially after the massive success from last night. Unfortunately, the first few traps are completely empty and stripped of bait, so he resets them with snail meat. But when he reaches the 5th spot, the trap is completely gone. Talk about a heart-stopping moment. Searching the dark area nearby, he spots fresh blood splatters on the ground. He realizes he caught something huge, sparking a brief moment of excitement before cold caution takes over. A basic trap can injure big game, but it rarely kills them outright. He readies his crossbow. Armed with the loaded weapon, he carefully follows the trail of dark blood and heavy footprints. The further away he drifts from the safety of the creek, the more anxious he feels. In this suffocating darkness, his lantern only illuminates a tiny circle of safety at a time. Losing track of that water source would be just as fatal as confronting a wounded beast. After 10 minutes of tense tracking, he spots it, a white sheep with 2 black horns. With one front leg caught in the trap, the beast panics the moment it spots him. He lifts his crossbow expecting it to run, but instead it struggles up and charges. The trapped leg slows the beast down, so he fires, hits, and swaps weapons. To fire a second arrow as it keeps coming, the black-horned sheep still doesn't stop. And those sharp black horns make his decision simple. He runs, getting gored. Would tear him wide open. The beast has a clamped leg and 2 arrows deep inside, so it cannot keep up, but injured prey is terrifying in its last frantic burst. He remembers reading that the safest way to handle wounded beasts is to play defensively and wait until they completely exhaust themselves, but waiting in the dark carries its own deadly risks. He turns back once the sheep slows, draws his third loaded crossbow, and aims carefully. The final arrow strikes its neck, and the black-horned sheep collapses. Glowing reward prompts immediately appear on the ground, and the loot list is far richer than any wild rat. The game awards black-horned sheep horns, 1 black-horned sheep skin, 2 silver coins, and another black-horned sheep skin along with 1 blueprint. The meat is a single massive piece weighing about 23 pounds, and he knows at once that he has struck it rich. He stores the meat, then picks up the horns to study them. Each horn is about half a meter long, straight, sharp at the tip, and dangerous enough that if the sheep had hit him, he might not be standing. This black-horned sheep is no ordinary beast. Without his crossbows, even with its leg trapped, he might not have taken it down safely. That realization leaves a cold chill behind his ribs. The horns can serve as weapons, their tips being just as sharp as iron blades. In practice, he stores them, then picks up the black-horned sheepskin, the soft fleece, lifting his mood instantly. Sleeping on this instead of hardwood will change his nights forever. The last item is the blueprint. When he touches it, the light screen explains that he has discovered a beast hide set blueprint, which can craft a beast hide coat, beast hide pants, beast hide boots, and a beast hide hat. If he adds beast hide, the crafting screen has spaces for the blueprint and the material, so he inserts the blueprint, then adds the black-horned sheep skin. The panel shows the beast hide set blueprint with black-horned sheep skin at 1 out of 5. He tests a wild rat skin too, and the panel accepts it, showing that 1 black-horned sheepskin plus 1 wild rat skin gives progress toward the required hide, with 20 wild rat skins equaling 1 black-horned sheepskin. That means the beast hide set is well within reach. He already has 8 wild rat skins before this latest catch, so the blueprint is not some distant treasure locked behind impossible materials. He puts the blueprint, black-horned sheepskin, and wild rat skin away. Then he picks up the 2 silver coins. Online information said 1 silver coin equals 1,000 copper coins, so this single sheep gives more wealth than all the copper he has collected so far. His panel now reads: Wang Yu, age 24, strength 0.9, agility 0.8, spirit 1.2, and wealth of 693 copper coins. He collects the 3 arrows and the animal trap because that trap is the hero of the morning. Finding his way back by the marks takes more than 10 minutes, and he breathes easier when the little creek appears again. Getting lost would have turned victory into disaster. He continues checking the remaining traps and finds another wild rat at the 10th trap, gaining wild rat. That yields 360 grams of meat, 1 rat skin, and 63 copper coins, plus a horned sheep and another wild rat from 12 traps. This is a massive haul, around 11. In the morning, he heads back to his shelter to boil water properly in his camping pot. He originally planned to go out searching for food today, but the massive 23-pound black-horned sheep changes everything. With so much meat, his food crisis is finally over for now, so he decides to cut some trees and stockpile firewood instead. After drinking some water and resting, he grabs his small hacksaw. From late morning until well after 2 in the afternoon, he fells 3 massive trees, chopping their trunks and branches into 3-foot lengths, then stacks them on the 2nd floor. While working, he only eats a few wild berries and drinks his boiled water. Around 3, he walks over to the nearby creek to wash his hands for good luck. He returns to the shelter and grabs the sheep meat. No pressure, he summons the dice, blows on it, and focuses. On the target, knowing his survival for the next few months lies right here. The dice spins and lands on 4, spawning 4 spectral slabs of fresh meat. He drops the new pieces on the ground right next to the original pile. Now he has 5 massive slabs totaling 115 pounds. This is wild. Finally, the hunger stops. The game is no longer starving him out. He lights the fire because juicy, roasted mutton skewers are completely irresistible. He cuts off a full pound of meat. Hard labor has definitely worked up quite an appetite. So a pound feels totally justified. He skewers the meat on wooden sticks to roast. That smell, it makes the entire grueling hunt feel absolutely worth it. This black horn sheep tastes way better than any mutton he has ever had before. After days of eating scraps, roasted mutton with berries feels like a grand feast, and those sour berries cut the richness perfectly so the meal never feels too heavy. If he divides the remaining meat into 200-gram portions after this feast, he has about 285 portions left. Eating mutton daily would last 95 days. While rationing it carefully could push that to almost half a year. Food is no longer an immediate threat. Safety is now his main goal. In the afternoon, he keeps chopping down trees. From 4 until past 8 at night, he fells 4 more huge trees, stacking even more firewood upstairs. Dinner tonight is another 200 grams of roasted sheep meat. After 9, his duplicate dice is ready again, but he decides not to multiply stone materials just yet, even though his logging left 10 exposed tree stumps that desperately need hiding. The traps still require freshwater snail meat for bait, and he is completely out. Since the 157 snails cannot be duplicated alive, he crushes them. One by one, each snail yields 10 grams of bait and 2 shiny copper coins. By the time he finishes, he has 1,570 grams of meat and 314 copper coins. He dumps the meat into a bucket to roll. 4 pips appear, multiplying the bucket's contents by a massive 5 times. Now he has nearly 8,000 grams of snail meat, which is roughly 16 pounds of bait. That easily secures his entire trap line. Checking them one more time, he finds another wild rat, scoring 360 grams of meat and 63 coins. Food is absolutely abundant now, but who knows how long this frozen wilderness survival will actually last. Maintaining a steady food supply is still his absolute priority. Caught 10 wild rats for him. That kind of reliability matters when his backpack is full. He baits all 12 traps again before heading back to the shelter. The chat channel is dead, so he spreads out his sheepskin. He lies down, and the physical difference is absolutely immediate. Wooden boards are no real mattress, but compared to bare wood, it feels almost soft. He falls asleep fast until 3 in the morning when his alarm wakes him. Another dice roll. This time he chooses the black horn sheepskin because the beast hide set requires 5 of them. He silently hopes the dice behaves. It stops right on 5. Boom, 5 extra sheepskins appear, giving him 6 total. He pulls out the beast hide set blueprint and drops it in with the hides. The crafting panel confirms that everything is ready for the assembly. With a quick confirmation, the blueprint and hides merge together. Rings of bright light swirl together on his screen, and several items appear right in front of him. He gets a beast hide coat and matching boots. He equips the whole set, and everything fits nicely. Awesome, but he takes it off because sleeping in this heavy gear would be too hot inside his warm shelter. He still has 1 spare sheepskin, so he spreads it over the wooden boards to sleep on. Day 6 begins around 8 in the morning, waking him after his absolute best night of sleep since this brutal survival game started. Comfort is key to staying functional. Next up is breakfast. He roasts some catfish since he is saving his sheep meat. Eating the same mutton every single day gets old fast. He has a 500-gram grass carp, another slightly smaller, and 3 portions of catfish. He decides to save the grass carp for a dice roll while his catfish roasts over the fire. A message arrives. Jang Dihai woke up early, checked his fishing net, and caught another carp. He wants to trade it, knowing our main character loves fish. The trade request shows a 400-gram carp. He offers sheep meat. The trade finishes smoothly, and his ally is stunned by the food. He immediately notices the mutton and asks if he actually hunted a sheep. He downplays it as simple luck. Jang then reveals he has even more fish. He wants to swap them for the sheep meat, which is way more valuable, fully expecting a rejection, but our guy agrees right away. A good deed deserves another. Since Jang was friendly earlier, he responds in kind. He tells him that true allies look out for each other. Jang gets emotional, swearing loyalty to the friendship. He tells him to start sending the requests, promising to take every single fish he has, soon. Trades flood in, 500-gram carps, slightly smaller ones, and even larger. Fish fill the screens. He sends 10 separate trades, which are met with 10 pounds of premium sheep meat. Once finished, he holds 10 more carp, making it 13 total. His trading partner is incredibly grateful. He sends a genuine thank you, and our hero closes the chat feeling extremely satisfied with the day. Sure, the other guy got a deal, but there is absolutely no reason to complain. 13 pounds of fresh fish is. Doing this one by one means fish for a month. The real issue is my backpack. Space meat keeps best inside it, but my tiny 1 cubic meter storage is getting pretty crowded. Moving forward, I need to be much smarter about this. I should only multiply those grass carp when I am actually ready to eat. Otherwise, they will hog too much space. Time to gear up and leave. The sheepskin suit works instantly. No more freezing. I make my way out. I climb down the ladder, move it away, and hide it in the grass. If another player spots that ladder, they can easily climb right into my safe haven. Without it, even finding the giant rocks guarantees nothing. Leaving a staircase outside is just an open invitation for thieves. It is past 9, so I roll the dice on another large stone. A solid 4-pip roll lets me place 4 new rocks over 4 of the 10 stumps from the recent tree cutting, leaving 6 still uncovered. I also collect another 120 milliliters of pine oil while passing the massive cedar. Next, I head down the steep slope to the creek. Time to check the 12 animal traps. 2 more rats are caught, giving me 720 grams of meat, skins, and some copper coins. I bait the traps with water snails and head upstream. Meat is sorted. So today I focus on greens. Eating only roasted meat without fruit or vegetables is pure misery. Plus, I have no seasoning, so boiling it is. Out the downstream side is where that burly player already searched. That makes going upstream my absolute best bet for finding food. I stop actively hunting for water snails and only grab them when I spot them. Instead, I focus my full attention on the creek banks for berries. Every single plant gets a close look as long as I can reach it safely. Going upstream pays off fast with plenty of fresh berries. This world has way more fruit trees than I expected, thank goodness. That explains how weaker players survive. After 2 hours near noon, I spot a strange fruit tree ahead. Tiny round fruits dangle from the branches. When I pick one, the game identifies it as an edible wild orange. Peeling it open, I find a thick rind and ugly pulp. I take a bite and my face twists inside out. It is incredibly sour. My immediate instinct is to toss it, but my hand stops, sour or not. This is fruit and I badly need it. Eating meat every day demands something sharp to cut through the richness. Plus, this means precious vitamin C. Even if it tastes terrible, bad fruit is always better than no fruit. I eagerly pick every single small wild orange I can reach. The tree is only about 6 feet tall, which makes it very easy to pull down. The branches, I secure 27 fruits before searching the surrounding. He searches the surrounding area for another wild orange tree, but finds nothing, refusing to wander too far from the little creek. The dark has already taught him what greed looks like. He returns to the creek bank and keeps moving upstream. Half an hour later, another light appears ahead. His heart sinks because he never expected a player upstream too, but avoiding unknown neighbors only lets fear grow. He walks toward the light with his crossbow ready, confident that an ordinary person is not as tough as a black horn sheep. 1 arrow should end a human, and he can fire 3 preloaded shots in a flash. The other player also walks toward him without rushing, which is not reassuring. They stop at a safe distance, and he finally sees her clearly. She is a tall young woman with a cold, beautiful face, likely round his age, holding a cat. That detail matters far more than her face. The cat is entirely silver-white with jewel-bright eyes in the darkness, and it stares at him with a gaze too aware for an ordinary animal. A beautiful woman in a polar night wilderness is surprising, but a beautiful woman with an eerie cat is the kind of surprise that makes his skin tighten. The dark wilderness only makes the scene worse. She spots his crossbow, then eyes the beast hide set on his body and asks if he is the downstream player. He confirms it. She points to a giant rock beside the creek and proposes using it as a boundary, downstream belonging to him, upstream belonging to her, and neither of them interfering with the other. The words sound painfully familiar after his meeting with the burly man, but this time he agrees because the woman and the cat feel far more dangerous than they look. She warns him not to cross the line in the future, and he agrees again. Then her attention returns to his beast hide set, and she asks if he has extra beast hide. After collecting the 5 units required for the set, because she can trade something for it, he asks if she also has the beast hide set blueprint, and she says she does. He tells her he has no extra hide for now, but if she needs it, they can trade later. He asks what she can offer. She says she is still short 3 units of beast hide, and if he can provide them, she can trade him an extraordinary item. Those words hit him harder than her face or the cat. She clarifies that it is an auxiliary extraordinary item. Otherwise, 3 units of beast hide would not be enough, but she guarantees it will help in this survival game. That tells him she is likely an old player, someone who survived other games and brought resources in. Old players are dangerous because they may have methods he cannot see. He keeps his answer careful and says he will contact her when he has hide. She suggests adding each other as friends for easier trading, and he agrees. She aims her bracelet at him. The system sends a friend request, and he accepts it without needing any code or scan. Beyond the bracelet, her name appears as Sewell. The name clicks with a memory from the trading platform, because she was the one who listed black striped python meat for wood. He had tried to bid but lacked enough wood, and now the player who killed that python is standing in front of him with a silver white cat in her arms. He cannot underestimate So Shing's soul. Killing a black-striped python in this darkness already proved she was not ordinary, and the extraordinary item offer confirms she has history. He asks whether she has any extra vegetarian food like berries, but she says she lacks vegetarian food. 2. Having none to trade, he tells her it is fine and leaves first, staying too long near an old player with an unknown cat feels like handing her more chances. To measure him as he walks away, his grip stays tight on his crossbow. If Sewell makes any sudden move, he will fire 3 shots without waiting to ask what she can do. Her light finally drifts away, and only when he can no longer see it does. Relief at last. The grueling trek back to his shelter takes nearly 2 hours. Today he collected plenty of berries, 27 small wild oranges, and a very unpleasant fact: other players occupy both upstream and downstream. His movement range has shrunk. Downstream has the burly man, upstream has So Changsal, and his shelter sits between them like a secret he cannot afford to expose. He moves. The hidden ladder enters the shelter, descends to the first floor, and lights the fireplace. Lunch is roasted blackhorn sheep meat, eaten while he sorts through what that encounter actually means. He has food and wood, but others have become his biggest threat. It is past 3, lunch is over, and he chooses another large stone in the rocky area for the dice. The roll gives 4 pips, and he places 4 new stones over 4 of the 6 remaining stumps, leaving only 2 uncovered. The rocky area now has a real shape, a jumble of large stones in forest that forces anyone approaching the shelter to pass through confusing gaps. A rational player should not enter that kind of maze in the dark. If someone stubborn does wander in, he still doubts they will find the exact route to his shelter. Meeting So Changsal makes him feel a new level of dread. Hiding his shelter is no longer enough on its own. It's not enough, and over time, he needs another ring of stones 20 to 30 meters outside it, a real wall of confusion around his base that can be built slowly because food is no longer urgent. He can keep multiplying large stones instead of chasing meals every dice cycle. Since food is secured, he can buy safety with every spare roll. He spends the rest of the afternoon cutting trees. Only 3 more big trees are needed to fill the second floor with firewood, so he cuts them, processes them, and hauls everything inside. By around 7 in the evening, his second floor is completely packed. Another major milestone hit complete. It is only the 6th day of the survival game, yet he has plenty of food and plenty of wood. From this point, he can hunt nearby with animal traps, fetch water from the little creek, and avoid long trips except when he needs vegetarian food. His only regret is still fruit and vegetables. If he had enough vegetarian food stored, he could stop ranging far from the shelter almost entirely and simply defend the base. After chopping the trees, he cleans the area around the shelter, removing traces of his previous activity and hiding Whatever cannot be removed under weeds and fallen leaves, he wants any passing player to circle the outside, see nothing worth investigating, and leave. Even if someone insists on wandering into the jumble of stones, the shelter itself remains invisible, traces completely cleared. It is time for some dinner. Roasted fish sounds better than more lamb because alternating between roasted blackhorn sheep meat and roasted fish keeps meals from becoming too tiring. He still has 2 portions of catfish weighing about 213 grams each, so he takes one out and roasts it over the fire. His daily labor makes hunger arrive fast, and he eats a lot now without feeling wasteful. After the fish, he eats berries and, compared with most players, his meals are already good while many of them are still starving. After dinner, it is already past 9 and the threat sitting heaviest in his mind is no longer hunger, but other players. He returns to the rocky. He focuses on the area behind the shelter, since the outer maze still needs work. Picking a tree over 13 feet tall, he uses his dice on it, rolling a 3. That roll grants him 3 extra massive trees. With 5 exposed stumps left, he presses 3 of them down using the new timber, camouflaging the entire spot with loose leaves. The final 2 are left for tomorrow, as he is done cutting wood tonight. With the cover finished, he heads over to check his 12 animal traps. The traps reward him with 3 wild rats, each yielding 360 grams of meat. A single skin and 63 copper coins, that adds up to 3 meat portions. 3 skins and 189 copper coins. It is a fantastic harvest, almost too good. As the novice protection period nears its end, he wonders if these traps will stay this generous once the system stops being nice. Heading back inside his shelter, he adds the 3 new rat skins to his existing 12. Since Chong's soul needs 3 units of beast hide, that means acquiring 60 skins. That special extraordinary item she offered earlier keeps spinning in his mind. If he can gather a few more and multiply them with the dice, just 2 units of beast hide could make this deal insanely profitable. The temptation is simply too strong. An extraordinary item is not something anyone in this harsh world should take lightly. Since the night is early, he counts up his wild rat meat. The traps caught 15 rats total, and 4 of those were multiplied by his dice, yielding around 18 pounds of meat. After a lucky 4-pip roll, he already traded 1 pound to Jendihai, leaving roughly 17 pounds, while 11 other rats are still completely untouched by his dice. That means his current meat supply is absolutely massive. Food is no longer his main concern, variety is. He takes out 20 portions of the multiplied meat, with each weighing 250 grams, and lists them on the trading channel. Instantly, the system alerts the entire chat channel that Wang Yu has listed 20 portions of fresh rat meat on the market. Desperate players immediately swarm the listing because finding meat is incredibly rare, especially at night. His trade conditions are very simple. He wants berries at a ratio of 1 to 2.5 with a strict limit of 1 portion per person. Each portion will cost them 625 grams of berries. The public chat instantly explodes, reacting exactly how starving people do when someone casually flaunts their wealth. Many are completely shocked that he is trading valuable meat for simple berries. Others curse the high exchange rate, while some remember that he previously traded fish just for variety. Such disbelief is totally expected, but their complaints will not fill his empty pockets. During this initial protection phase, berries are everywhere while meat is scarce. Out of 100,000 players, someone will always have surplus fruit and a desperate craving for meat. He limits purchases because he does not want powerful players hoarding his food and becoming a major threat. According to his calculations, he will soon get 27.5 pounds of berries. But he lacks a container big enough to store them. His current basket simply cannot hold that much volume, so he grabs tough tree vines to weave a bigger container. His hands are far from skilled, and the tedious crafting takes over an hour. Once the basket is finished, he pulls up the trading channel. All the meat has completely vanished, snatched up by eager players in mere minutes. It takes just a minute, faster than he expected from desperate players. The chat keeps tagging him as slow, and hesitant players complain beside bitter ones, all demanding more meat. He ignores them completely since one listing is more than enough. Before long, after his trade, several other top-tier players copy his exact move and list meat for berries, all at a 1 to 3 ratio. Bang My lists 40 portions of giant lizard meat at 250 grams each. Next, Baby Bon lists 20 portions of black bear meat. Then So Chang Seoul lists 20 portions of short-legged rabbit meat, while Jang Dihai puts up 10 portions of grass carp. Notifications flood the chat. One after another, every single trade goes through almost instantly, the weaker players are totally confused and miserable. Honestly, who can blame them? They cannot comprehend why so many people have extra meat, or why they would ever swap it for berries. Some demand an explanation, and this local influencer does what influencers do best, turning panic into a lecture. He says most ordinary players still survive on berries, but a select group of high-tier players has clearly reached complete meat freedom and begun storing plant-based food for later. He warns that once the 7-day rookie protection period finally ends, berries will be incredibly hard to obtain, so everyone must prepare early. Then Gapping drops an even bigger truth bomb. He says those players with massive meat supplies are likely veterans who have already survived previous survival games, unlocked extraordinary items, and uploaded those items onto their personal panels for this next run. That theory fits So Chang's soul perfectly, and the chat instantly erupts with questions about extraordinary items, fairness, that viral player who flew around like Superman, and whether this current game offers supernatural rewards too. Mixed into the serious messages are mixed with the usual absolute nonsense, like someone selling lonely chat for berries. The son of Gang, the richest man, offering future cash for food, and some Shanghai Alliance recruiting under leaders who cleared past survival games. Meanwhile, he finishes packing the traded berries into a new, large basket. The trade yields around 27.5 pounds, which he adds to his 5.5 pounds, bringing the total to roughly 33 pounds of berries. Looking at all that food makes him feel like a farmer staring at a massive harvest. He pops a single berry into his mouth just because he can, with the small basket now empty. He transfers 12 white gourds and 27 small wild oranges inside. These items do not need the backpack to stay fresh, so he stores them in his small pantry. To free up valuable space, the large berry basket goes straight into the backpack because berries rot fast outside. Finally, his major shortage that plagued him for days is finally solved, at least for now. Having this many berries, he can comfortably stay holed up in his shelter until the entire polar night survival ends. If things outside get too dangerous, that is the dream after all, but this game always finds a way to ruin a perfect plan. He curls up on the cozy sheepskin, and his sleep is almost luxurious compared to those brutal first few days. Around 3 in the morning, his loud alarm jolts him awake because his special dice can be rolled again. Still half asleep, he pulls out that giant basket of berries and rolls. 5 pips appear, and talk about insane luck. His eyes snap wide open because 2 nights in a row, 5 illusory berry baskets float right above the dice. He releases them one by one, and in seconds, the entire first floor is packed with 6. He stares at baskets packed with berries, pure, sweet food freedom. But reality hits fast because 6 massive baskets weigh almost 200 pounds. His small, 1 cubic meter inventory backpack simply does not have room to swallow that massive volume. He was too hasty, needing to multiply smaller amounts instead. But honestly, who really expects to roll a perfect 5 in the dead of the night? The cool night helps, but these freshly picked berries will still spoil. His backpack is already completely crammed full with 5 slabs of wild sheep meat. Plus, he absolutely cannot forget 13 large grass carp, since fresh fish simply tastes way better. 3 defensive crossbows with bolts and a mess of survival gear fill the rest. Safety absolutely outranks food, meaning the weapons stay no matter how much the berries complain. He barely squeezes 4 baskets inside before his space runs out. The remaining 2 baskets will just have to wait until tomorrow. With food and clothes sorted, he happily drifts back to sleep without that constant, gnawing anxiety. When morning comes, it marks his 7th day inside this brutal game. If he makes it through today, a special gift awaits him. Waking up around 8 in the morning, the very first thing he does is check the chat. The status board shows 99,963 survivors. 37 players died in just 7 days, even though most recruits were capable young adults. Most are healthy, strong young adults, not helpless kids or frail elders. Talk about a truly brutal wake-up call. 37 players are dead before the novice period even ends. This is no joke. For breakfast, he roasts wild sheep meat and berries. Berries finally take center stage today instead of being a luxury. While the savory wild mutton roasts, he pulls up his friends list and messages Jang Dihai. He asks if Jang Dihai has any veggies, offering surplus berries to trade. Jang Dihai asks what he could possibly mean by having too many. So he admits he has about 60 pounds of berries, which completely shocks the man. Jang Dihai figures he bartered meat, then mentions he traded fish for some. He swaps 5.5 pounds of fish for 16 pounds of berries, so he has plenty. Jang Dihai has no other greens, but offers something special instead. And believe me, the moment he mentions wild chili, his attention locks onto it instantly. He offers to trade mutton, but Jang Dihai grew up near the ocean. He absolutely cannot handle spicy food, so he decides to just give them away for free. A trade window pops up with 12 portions of wild green chilies. The system flags them as edible, making the hungry survivor salivate instantly. But he refuses to take them for free, sending over 2 pounds of berries to make it fair. Jang Dihai protests, arguing he already got too much free lamb before. But he insists that separate transactions stay separate and firmly urges him to accept them. Jang Dihai finally relents, calling him a rare, deeply honest survival partner. As soon as the trade seals, 12 small green chili peppers suddenly appear in his palm. They look like bird-eye chilies, and Jang Dihai issues a warning. These are actually ghost peppers, and the sheer spice nearly suffered him to death earlier. He warns him to use them very sparingly, while the survivor expresses deep gratitude. Chilies are precious luxury items in this game, but they unfortunately cannot fill an empty stomach. That is true, though a rich player would pay handsomely for them. Seasoning is incredibly rare, making these wild chilies worth their weight in gold. Zero comfort, that is the hidden torture here. Jang Dihai also offers to trade water snail meat for berries, but he declines. He already has plenty. Last time he crushed 157 water snails, multiplying the meat. He ended up with 749 10-gram portions, 16 pounds in a bucket. At a 3-to-1 ratio, buying more is pointless. They close the chat. He eats roasted lamb and berries while thinking about those 2 large baskets. Still sitting outside his backpack, if he does not handle them, they will rot. He cannot free up space without losing more important items, so he contacts Sung Sol. First, because she seems wealthy and might have something worth trading, he tells her. He has a batch of berries and asks if she needs them. She answers that she does not, because she exchanged about 33 pounds of berries for a dwarf rabbit yesterday. Then she asks whether he has extra beast hide and says they can trade. He tells her he should be able to gather 3 units within the next couple of days, and she tells him to find her when he has them, so Chang saw refusing. Berries is annoying, but it also confirms she is not just some ordinary starving player. Next, he thinks of Bang Muo, the player who traded him giant lizard meat for fish meat before. He sends her a friend request, noting that he has dozens of pounds of berries to sell. She adds him soon after and asks if he really has that much. When he confirms it, she says she exchanged for about 66 pounds of berries yesterday and does not lack them either. Bang Muo asks instead whether he has other meat, offering giant lizard meat at a ratio of 1.5 to 1. She remembers his fish meat tasting good and asks if he still has any. His mouth twitches when he reads that, because she has enough giant lizard meat to talk. Like she lives in a lizard den. The 13 grass carp in his backpack have not been multiplied yet, so he refuses to spend fish now. He tells her he has high quality meat but wants a 2-to-1 ratio. When Bang Muo asks what kind of meat, he answers lamb, and she agrees immediately before asking how much he has. After a moment of calculation, he takes out about 16.5 pounds of black horn sheep meat and sends the trade request. She puts up 30 portions of giant lizard meat at 500 grams each. Without hesitation, roughly 33 pounds total, and he confirms. The giant lizard meat comes out and he hangs all of it beside the fireplace to air dry, along with the 2 pounds already in his backpack. That trade is a real harvest, and with a dice multiplying his meat supplies, he can eat sparingly for half a year without worrying. Bang Muo tells him the lamb quality is excellent and says she will keep trading at the 2-to-1 ratio if he has extra. He tells her he has no more to spare because, given a choice, he would rather eat lamb than giant lizard meat. Even so, 33 pounds of giant lizard meat makes his reserve much stronger. The 2 berry baskets still remain, and he tries Ye Bomb next, sending a friend request and explaining that he wants to sell berries, but he does not reply. That probably means he is not interested, so Wang Yu needs another solution. At exactly 9 in the morning, a light screen appears in front of him, the system congratulates all players for surviving to the 7th day and updates the 7-day game hints. The first hint says the game map is officially activated because this survival game has entered its 7th day. The second congratulates surviving players and says the 7-day novice benefits have been officially. These special benefits are scattered across the game map for everyone to see. Players are warned to claim them carefully, but the third notification brings worse news. At midnight, the wilderness will face 7 straight days of relentless heavy rain. Everyone needs to watch the skies and find shelter before it starts. He reads the screen twice before closing it. 7 days of downpour is not just bad weather. This is a full-blown disaster warning. He quickly taps open the game channel icon. A map feature has finally been added alongside the public and private chats. Clicking it reveals an online-style map hovering in front of him, covered in dense markers. They are all labeled as novice benefits. Zooming in, he pinpoints his own exact location. He recognizes the surrounding terrain, including the small creek running past his camp. The system lets him drop custom coordinates and share them with other survivors. Suddenly, the world feels incredibly massive and 10 times more dangerous. Mountains, deep rivers, and winding lakes fill the massive layout. But his eyes lock onto those glowing novice benefit markers. Since everyone can see them, it is a first-come, first-served race to survive. The nearest prize is 3.3 miles away in a straight, pitch-black line. In this dark forest, that is a long walk, but the prompt warned against staying idle. He cannot just hide in his shelter and pretend these life-saving rewards do not exist. Survival requires taking risks, and he absolutely has to know what those benefits are. He grabs his lantern and military shovel, preparing to head out into the night. First, he marks his shelter's exact coordinates so he can guide himself back in the dark. Right on cue, a player named Ghoul pings him. He wants to discuss a previous trade. With heavy rain coming, Ghoul needs his small hacksaw back to cut down extra firewood. He is offering the military shovel in return. The deal makes total sense. Once the trade request pops up, he places the hacksaw in the slot. The trade goes through smoothly, and the military shovel is back in his inventory. He already has several shovels anyway, so he loses absolutely nothing. Guo admits that preparing firewood early was a brilliant, forward-thinking move. Shovel in one hand and lantern in the other, he steps outside his cozy shelter. 3 loaded crossbows are packed and ready to go inside his backpack. Passing a massive cedar tree, he empties 4 pine oil collectors into a tin bucket. Then he presses on, pushing forward toward the closest novice benefit marker. Since the coordinates lie across the small creek, he carefully makes his way over. Around 9 o'clock, he feels a familiar warmth in his right hand. The dice is recharged. He does not have any items in his pack that desperately need multiplying. So when he spots a massive boulder over 10 feet high and 6 feet wide, he acts. He rolls the dice on the giant rock. A lucky roll of 4 multiplies the boulders. He decides to keep them stored. They are his ultimate secret weapon now. If danger strikes near the zone, dropping massive stones will crush any threat. But he must release them before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Otherwise, he will not be able to reuse the dice, but there is still plenty of time. He quickens his pace, covering the 3.3 miles in just about an hour. He moves slowly enough to stay alert. Soon, he is only a few yards away. He slows his steps to a quiet crawl, sensing immediate danger ahead. Shovel gripped tightly, he waits, with those heavy boulders ready to drop on command. About 30 feet away from the marker, he spots something. He spots a wooden box, but then a giant centipede suddenly crawls out from behind. It is over 3 feet long, and its wriggling legs make his skin crawl. Disgust hits harder than fear. The terrifying beast slowly raises its head. It just watches him without attacking. Now watch, this is where he figures it out. The beginner rewards are inside that box, and this creature is the warning. Summoning a massive boulder here is completely unnecessary and a bad idea. A 10-foot stone would smash the box and all the loot. So he decides to pull out a crossbow, fully aware the monster will fight back. His plan is simple: fire off 3 preloaded crossbows in rapid succession. He needs to take it down in under 4 seconds before finishing it with a shovel. The real fight here is purely psychological, a test of raw nerves. Most ordinary people would just freeze up in terror. He takes a breath, aims right for the centipede's head, and fires. The bolt connects, the massive body twists and thrashes violently. As the beast scrambles frantically over the wooden box, he refuses to let disgust slow him down. He draws the second crossbow, shoots, and swaps to the final one. The third hit lands, and the monster dissolves, leaving a prompt. A wave of relief washes over him. The system panel identifies the drop as a giant centipede poison tooth. This item contains a lethal venom that kills instantly upon blood contact. He carefully picks up the teeth, instantly realizing what they are. He almost throws them away on pure instinct. If that monster had bitten him, he would be dead right now, and that word instantly carries a heavy weight. But then his fear turns into calculation, and trust me, this guy knows weapons. If he coats his bolts with it, even a minor scratch becomes lethal. This would be devastating against armored enemies. He wraps the tooth up carefully. Using several layers of thick tree leaves, he carefully packs the poisoned tooth into his bag. He plans to study it back at his shelter, where it is safe. Instead of recklessly rushing in, he circles the wooden box first. Caution has always kept him alive much longer than foolish bravery, since the box is unsealed. So he uses his shovel to pry the lid open from a safe distance. The lantern light reveals edible salt and cream candy, including a 200-gram pack. It is exactly what he needs, alongside 20 pieces of 3.6-gram candies. After a week of salt-free food, this feels like treasure. The candy is not for snacking. Sugar will help him replenish his strength during future wilderness trips. He stores both items immediately. These two excellent rewards are highly valuable. They make him wonder if all novice boxes hold such useful supplies. His first instinct is to open the chat channel and see what others found. But he stops himself and opens up the in-game map instead. Watching other players brag is pointless when there are still active markers around. His marker has vanished, proving claimed novice boxes disappear from the map. The nearest remaining marker is only about 2.4 miles away. He reloads all 3 crossbows, packs them, and grabs his lantern and shovel. With his weapons ready, the rough terrain still keeps him from walking straight. He rushes straight ahead, knowing other players can see the same marker. 30 minutes later, he gets within a few dozen yards of his target. Thankfully, the marker is still there as he cautiously approaches another wooden box. There is a giant centipede climbing onto it. This time, his fear is duller. Having already killed one, the process feels almost mechanical to him now. He aims a crossbow, shooting the giant centipede directly in the head. He fires 2 more bolts before the monster can even close the distance. The beast vanishes, leaving behind another toxic tooth with that same deadly warning. It warns of instant death upon blood contact, so he carefully wraps the sharp tooth in large leaves, stores it, and opens the wooden box. Inside is another 200-gram pack of salt and 5 amoxicillin capsules. In this harsh world, medicine is a precious, life-saving resource. It cures fevers, infections, and whatever else this wild environment throws at him. 5 pills are way too few, meaning he will need his dice to multiply them. Both boxes are similar in value, making the risk incredibly worth it. Checking the map, the next closest novice marker is a massive distance away. At 8.5 miles, it would take him nearly 3 hours to arrive. With other players moving, he hesitates, but then a light appears up ahead. He instantly loads all 3 crossbows, keeping one ready as the light approaches. Another player was clearly hunting this marker, but they arrived a bit too late. As the figure gets closer, he recognizes the burly man from the creek. The man recognizes him right back, and this time there is no polite greeting. He claims he was looking for him and demands everything inside his backpack. He raises a military shovel to attack, clearly overflowing with some newfound confidence. He is fully decked out in a complete set of rattan armor. Only his eyes are showing, and he carries a massive wooden shield. This gear is crafted specifically to counter any arrows from his crossbow. He calmly asks if the man prepared all this defense just for him. The burly man proudly boasts about it, confident that arrows cannot hurt him. He demands the novice rewards right now, fully convinced he is completely invincible. Then he charges forward, talk about rushing headfirst into your own funeral. He instantly triggers his boulder summoning technique, bringing down a massive stone. It drops straight onto the burly man, instantly cutting off his terrified scream. The boulder slams into the dirt, leaving absolutely nothing behind but heavy stone. Approaching the boulder to check, he finds no trace of the man left. The rock is too massive to move, trapping any potential loot underneath. That is a pity, as he really wanted to see if players drop loot. Especially since this guy was loaded with handcrafted armor and a shield. But hey, coming out of this alive is the ultimate prize anyway. He decides to abandon the remaining marker 8.5 miles away. Other players are likely closer and faster, so he heads back to shelter. He has not walked very far before another sudden light appears ahead. Moving fast, it instantly makes him tense until he recognizes So Chang's soul. She's not carrying her little silver-white cat this time around. Instead, she rides a massive silver beast nearly 3 meters long. Mount, he watches her warily, ready to drop another boulder if she makes the wrong move. Chang's soul only glances at him, turns her big cat and leaves. Toward the distant novice benefits marker, the speed of that beast explains why she can still chase a marker 8.5 miles away while he cannot, and he breathes easier once she is gone, then continues back, more than 2 hours later around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He reaches the little creek near the shelter, but does not go inside yet. He left in a hurry this morning, so the 12 animal traps need checking. The traps produce another 3 wild rats, and he receives 3 portions of wild rat meat at 360 grams each, and 3 skins. 189 copper coins, a suspiciously generous harvest, especially compared with earlier days, as if the game is giving one last push before the novice period ends. He baits all 12 traps again with water, snail meat, and heads. Back, passing through the forest, he releases the 3 remaining great stones from the dice. Pure impact, 2 great stones crush the last 2 stumps left. Uncovered yesterday, the final great stone goes 20 to 30 meters from the shelter. Part of the outer defensive wall he plans to build over time. His first defense is the maze of scattered stones and forest near the shelter, while the second will be a wider stone barrier. Back inside, he lights the fireplace and prepares roasted lamb for lunch. Now that he has edible salt, the lamb should finally taste like food, not punishment. Time to lay out the day's harvest. 2 packs of edible salt, 20 white rabbit cream candy pieces, and 5 moxicillin capsules. All of these items need the dice eventually, because salt improves every meal. Candy works great as field fuel, and medicine protects his future life. The 2 giant centipede poison teeth sit aside because he needs time to figure out how to safely coat his arrows if he meets another armored player. A single scratch from this poison means a sudden death sentence. Armor can block iron, but it cannot negotiate with poisoned blood. The lamb skewers finish roasting, and edible salt changes everything, because after 6 or 7 days of bland meals, salted lamb tastes heavenly. He devours it quickly. But he does not rest afterward, because the game says heavy rain will begin at midnight and continue for 7 days. The weather forecast confirms 7 days of heavy rain. His mind immediately goes to flooding, mudslides, lakes, ruined firewood, and drowned shelters. Luckily, his shelter is high enough and lacks a steep slope nearby, so mudslides are unlikely, but water seepage still is a threat, so he climbs the giant rocks to check and inspects the shelter. The roof has not been sealed yet, but that can be solved today, since the second floor is already packed with dry firewood and